They called her crazy, unstable, a liability who needed to disappear on the next flight out. But when one bruised nurse made a single hand gesture at gate 14, the entire terminal transformed into a war zone. Security believed the CEO's polished lies instantly, until a decorated military commander saw that signal and everything stopped. His face went white. His body language shifted from casual to combat ready in 3 seconds flat. Because that gesture? It wasn't random. It was military, classified, urgent. And the woman they were trying to erase had just activated something far more dangerous than anyone realized. Before we dive in, stay with me until the very end of this story. If this grabs you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far these stories travel across the world. The fluorescent lights of Harborview Regional Medical Center buzzed overhead like dying insects as Nurse Sarah Bennett gathered the last of her belongings from her locker. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from exhaustion that had burrowed so deep into her bones she couldn't remember what rest felt like anymore. 3 years. 3 years of double shifts, covering for understaffed floors, holding patients' hands through their darkest moments. 3 years of doing everything right, and it had ended in a parking garage 47 minutes ago. Sarah's reflection stared back from the small locker mirror, dark circles under her eyes, a fresh bruise blooming along her left cheekbone, split lip still oozing. She looked like someone who'd survived something, which technically she had. "You need to leave now." The voice came from behind her, cold and clinical. Sarah didn't turn around. She recognized Director Marcus Holloway's voice, the same voice that had been so warm during her orientation, so encouraging during her first code, so supportive when she'd worked 16 hours straight during the flu outbreak. That voice had changed completely 30 minutes ago when she'd walked into his office with her phone. "I'm collecting my things," Sarah said quietly, zipping her bag. "Security will escort you to the exit. CEO's orders." Now she did turn. Marcus stood in the doorway of the staff lounge, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Behind him, 2 hospital security guards waited, hands resting casually on their belts. They looked uncomfortable, like they didn't quite understand what they were doing here, but knew better than to ask questions. "CEO Blackwell wants me gone that badly?" Sarah asked. Marcus flinched at the name. "He wants to ensure a smooth transition, for everyone's safety." "My safety, or his reputation?" "Sarah, it's fine, Marcus." She slung her bag over her shoulder, wincing as the strap pressed against bruises most people couldn't see. "I'll go quietly, just like he wants." The walk through the hospital felt surreal. Staff members she'd worked alongside for years suddenly found their shoes fascinating. Dr. Patricia Hayes, who'd praised Sarah's instincts just last week, turned down a different corridor entirely. The overnight charge nurse, someone Sarah had covered for countless times, studied a chart like it contained the secrets of the universe. No one met her eyes. No one asked what happened. They already knew better. CEO Jonathan Blackwell had power in Silvercrest Falls that extended far beyond the hospital's walls. On paper, he was a visionary administrator who'd turned Harborview Regional from a struggling community hospital into a cutting-edge facility. In boardrooms and charity galas, he was untouchable. Behind closed doors, Sarah had learned something entirely different. The main entrance doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Morning light hit her face, too bright, too normal for everything that had just imploded. A black sedan waited at the curb, engine running. "Your transportation to the airport," one of the security guards said. He looked young, maybe 25. His name tag read Jenkins. "CEO Blackwell arranged your flight, leaves in 2 hours." Sarah studied the car, tinted windows, no company markings, driver she didn't recognize. "How generous of him," she murmured. Jenkins shifted his weight. "Look, I don't know what happened, but maybe it's better this way. Fresh start somewhere else." She almost laughed. Fresh start. As if geography could erase what she knew, what she'd documented, what she'd witnessed in the sub-basement levels where regular staff never went. Sarah climbed into the sedan without another word. The drive to Silvercrest Regional Airport took 18 minutes through morning traffic. The driver didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her presence, just drove with the mechanical precision of someone following very specific instructions. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out carefully. The screen was cracked from where it had hit the parking garage concrete, but it still worked. 17 missed calls from her mother in Denver, 9 texts from her friend Rachel asking what the hell was going on, 3 voicemails from numbers she didn't recognize, and 1 message that made her blood run cold. Unknown number. Get on that plane. This is your only warning. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She should call someone. The police. A lawyer. Anyone. But who would believe her? A junior nurse against one of the most powerful men in the city? She had evidence, yes. Photos, audio recordings, documentation of things that should never happen in a place meant to heal people. She also had a split lip, bruised ribs, and the distinct memory of Jonathan Blackwell's hand around her throat in the dim lighting of parking level B3. "Nobody touches my operations," he'd whispered, breath hot against her ear. "Nobody walks away with what they've stolen." Sarah hadn't stolen anything. She'd documented. There was a difference. The sedan pulled up to the departure terminal. The driver finally spoke. "Gate 14. Boarding starts in 90 minutes. She grabbed her bag and stepped onto the curb. The car pulled away before she'd fully closed the door, disappearing into the flow of traffic like it had never existed. Silvercrest Regional wasn't a large airport, maybe 30 gates total, serving mostly regional flights. But it was busy enough this morning, business travelers rushing with roller bags, families corralling small children, the usual chaos of people going somewhere they'd rather not be. Sarah moved through security on autopilot, shoes off, bag through the scanner, arms raised for the metal detector. The TSA agent barely glanced at her bruised face before waving her through. Gate 14 sat at the far end of Concourse B. Sarah found a seat away from the windows, away from the other passengers. Her hands still trembled as she pulled out her phone again. The photos were still there. 63 images documenting equipment that shouldn't exist in a civilian hospital. Treatment rooms designed for something other than standard care. Patient records with alterations so precise she'd almost missed them. And the names. 26 patients over 8 months whose charts showed routine recoveries but whose actual conditions told a completely different story. She'd spent 6 weeks piecing it together. 6 weeks of staying late, accessing systems she technically had clearance for but was never supposed to actually use. 6 weeks of feeling like she was losing her mind because what she was seeing couldn't possibly be real. Until last night, when she'd found the financial records. Flight 1847 to Denver will begin boarding in approximately 1 hour, the gate agent announced. Sarah stared at the departure board. Denver. Her mother's house. Safety, theoretically. Except Jonathan Blackwell had arranged this flight. Had someone drive her here, had made it very clear that her continued existence depended on being somewhere else. What happened to people who got on planes they were told to board? Her military training whispered uncomfortable answers, because Sarah Bennett hadn't always been a civilian nurse. She'd been other things first, done other jobs in other places where the rules were different and the stakes were permanent. That part of her life was supposed to be over, buried under a new name, a new history, a carefully constructed normal life. But some instincts don't disappear just because you want them to. Sarah scanned the terminal with eyes trained to notice details most people missed. Exit points, security positions, potential threats. Everyone was a potential threat until proven otherwise. An older woman read a romance novel 3 seats away. A businessman typed furiously on his laptop. 2 teenagers shared earbuds and laughed at something on their phone. And near the windows, pretending to read a newspaper but watching everything, a man in combat fatigues. Sarah's breath caught. Military, active duty based on the ribbons, senior officer based on the insignia, silver haircut, regulation short, posture that screamed special operations even when sitting casually. He turned a page without reading it. Their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. Sarah looked away first, pulse hammering. Coincidence. Had to be coincidence. Hundreds of flights went through this airport daily. Military personnel traveled. It meant nothing. Except he was at gate 14. Her gate. The gate Jonathan Blackwell had specifically sent her to. Paranoia, she told herself. Just paranoia from 3 years of looking over your shoulder mixed with 48 hours of no sleep. She pulled out her phone again, pretending to check messages. Used the black screen as a mirror to watch the military officer's reflection. He was watching her. Not openly, not obviously, but with the attention of someone conducting surveillance. Sarah's training kicked in faster than conscious thought. She cataloged every detail, rank insignia marking him as a colonel, ranger tab, airborne wings, ribbons suggesting multiple deployments to active combat zones. This wasn't some desk officer. This was someone who'd seen things and done things that left permanent marks. Why was he here? "Excuse me." A voice to her left made her jump. A flight attendant smiled apologetically. "Sorry to startle you. I'm doing a pre-board check for passengers needing assistance. You're on the Denver flight?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Great. We'll be boarding in about 45 minutes. Can I get you anything while you wait?" "I'm fine, thank you." The attendant moved on, but something felt wrong. The interaction was too smooth, too practiced, like she'd been sent specifically to confirm Sarah was still at the gate. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Last chance. Board the plane. Her jaw tightened. Someone was watching. Someone knew she was still here, still deciding. She stood abruptly, shouldering her bag. Movement. She needed movement. Needed to think without feeling like prey sitting in an open field. The terminal concourse stretched ahead. Shops, restaurants, bathrooms. She walked without particular direction, just putting distance between herself and Gate 14. Behind her, she felt rather than saw the military officer stand up. He was following her. Sarah's heart rate spiked, but she kept her pace normal. Not running, not yet. She ducked into a newsstand, pretending to browse magazines while watching the entrance in her peripheral vision. The colonel walked past, didn't look in, continued down the concourse. Coincidence, Sarah told herself again. Except she didn't believe in coincidences anymore. She bought a bottle of water she didn't want and left through the other entrance, doubling back toward the gate. If he was following her, she'd lose him in the crowd. Gate 14 appeared ahead. Most of the seats were filled now. Her flight was getting close to boarding. Sarah stopped at a window, staring out at the tarmac. The airplane that would take her to Denver sat at the jet bridge. Freedom. Escape. Everything she needed. Everything Jonathan Blackwell wanted. What happened to witnesses who cooperated by disappearing? She thought about the patient records she'd found. 26 people who'd come to Harborview Regional for routine procedures. 26 people whose charts had been altered. 26 people whose families probably still had no idea what had really happened. Sarah pulled out her phone. The photos were encrypted, backed up to 3 separate cloud accounts under names that couldn't be traced to her. If something happened, when something happened, the evidence would survive. But evidence without a witness was just data. "Ma'am?" She turned. The colonel stood 5 feet away. Up close, she could see the weathering in his face, lines that came from hard decisions in harder places. His eyes were sharp, assessing, but not unkind. "Colonel Ryan Mitchell," he said quietly. His voice carried the kind of authority that didn't need volume. "I need you to come with me." Sarah's hand moved instinctively, muscle memory from a life she'd left behind. Her fingers formed a shape, quick, precise. A signal she hadn't used in 7 years. Colonel Mitchell's expression changed completely. He'd recognized it. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "You're operational." Sarah's world tilted. She hadn't been operational in 7 years. Hadn't used that clearance, that training, that identity since... "Who sent you?" she whispered. "Nobody sent me. I'm traveling on personal time." Mitchell's eyes narrowed. "But that signal you just used? That's active, current. Someone reactivated your credentials." "That's impossible." "Apparently not." He glanced around the terminal, then back to her. "Whatever you're running from, whoever's after you, they just made this a federal situation." Sarah's phone buzzed again. She looked down. Unknown number. Step away from the officer. Her blood went cold. "They're watching right now." Mitchell followed her gaze to the phone, reading the message upside down. His jaw tightened. "How many exits at this gate?" 2 concourse access points. Emergency exits on the tarmac side." "Good. Stay close to me." He reached for his own phone. "Wait." But he was already dialing. "This is Colonel Mitchell. Identification Romeo 7 Charlie 9 or 5. I need immediate Metro police response to Silvercrest Regional Airport, Concourse B, Gate 14. Federal priority." Sarah grabbed his arm. "You don't understand what you're doing. The person behind this has connections, real power. Local police won't..." I'm not calling local police. Mitchell's tone shifted to something colder. I'm activating a threat response for potential hostile action against active military personnel. That's you, apparently. I'm not active. I haven't been for years. Then explain why your clearance pinged live status when you made that signal. He showed her his phone screen, some kind of military app she didn't recognize. Her photo stared back at her. Not the photo from her nursing license, her old photo, the one from before. Status, active. Deep cover threat level, critical. That's wrong, Sarah whispered. Someone made a mistake. I was discharged. I was dead, Mitchell finished. According to public records, Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez died in a training accident in Afghanistan 7 years ago. Closed casket, military honors, the whole thing. Sarah's legs felt weak. How do you know that name? Because 5 minutes ago, when you made that distress signal, every special operations officer within 100 miles got an alert that a ghost operative just called for help. The terminal seemed to tilt. Ghost operative, deep cover, active status. None of this was possible. None of this was, "Ma'am, I need you to breathe." Mitchell's hand was on her shoulder, steadying. Whatever's happening, we'll figure it out. But right now, someone dangerous is watching you, and I need to know what they want. Sarah looked at the departure board. Her flight to Denver started boarding in 12 minutes. Jonathan Blackwell wanted her on that plane, had arranged everything to make sure she boarded, had threatened her, watched her, confirmed she was at the gate. What happened at cruising altitude to passengers nobody was looking for anymore? "They want me dead," she said quietly. "They just want it to look like an accident." Mitchell's expression hardened. "Who's they?" Harborview Regional Medical Center, specifically CEO Jonathan Blackwell. She pulled out her phone, opening the encrypted folder. "I have evidence of illegal operations, patient manipulation, financial fraud, and something worse I haven't fully identified yet." Mitchell studied the photos as she scrolled through them. His face remained neutral, but his eyes told a different story. "This equipment, this isn't civilian medical gear." "No, it's not." "How long have you been investigating?" 6 weeks of documentation, but I've suspected something was wrong for almost a year." "And you were going to do what with this evidence?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "I tried going to the state medical board, filed a complaint. 2 days later, my complaint disappeared from their system, and I got a friendly visit from hospital security. I tried going to local police. The detective I spoke to called Blackwell's office before I'd even left the station. Last night, I tried going to the FBI field office. And the parking garage incident happened 3 hours after I left that building." Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. "You think the FBI is compromised?" "I think Jonathan Blackwell has connections that go deeper than I initially realized." Sarah pulled up another photo, a document she'd found buried in financial records. Harborview Regional received federal funding last year, $15 million for a specialized treatment program. Except that program doesn't exist. There's no staff assigned to it, no patients enrolled, no equipment purchased. Where did the money go? That's the question that got me a hand around my throat in a parking garage. Mitchell's jaw tightened. He assaulted you. He warned me. There's a difference, apparently. Not in any legal system I recognize. Mitchell looked around the terminal again. Who else knows about this evidence? Just me. I encrypted everything, backed it up to accounts he can't trace. But if I disappear, the evidence disappears with you, Mitchell finished. Smart play on his part, which means we need to make sure you don't disappear. Flight 1847 to Denver now boarding all zones, the gate agent announced. Sarah stared at the gate. Passengers lined up, scanning boarding passes, shuffling onto the jet bridge. Normal people doing normal things, completely unaware that someone had turned their flight into a potential crime scene. "I can't get on that plane," she whispered. "No," Mitchell agreed. "You absolutely cannot." Her phone exploded with messages. Unknown number. Board now. Unknown number. Last warning. Unknown number. You have 30 seconds. Mitchell's phone buzzed at the same time. He glanced at the screen, then immediately moved between Sarah and the main concourse. "We have a problem." "What?" 3 men just entered the terminal, former military based on movement patterns, all focused on this gate. His voice dropped to combat-level calm. "They're not airport security." Sarah's training overrode her fear. She scanned the terminal with new eyes. Found them immediately, 2 near the bathrooms, 1 by the coffee shop. Different clothing, but same energy, same purpose. Hunters. "Blackwell sent them," she said. "Probably." Mitchell's hand moved to his belt. She hadn't noticed before, but he was armed. "How far are you willing to go to protect that evidence?" Sarah thought about 26 patients, 26 families, 26 people who deserve someone to fight for them even if they didn't know it yet. "As far as it takes." Mitchell nodded slowly, respect flickering in his eyes. "Then we're about to make a very loud scene. You ready for that?" "I don't have much choice." "Actually, you do." He met her eyes. "You could still board that plane. Walk away. Disappear. No one would blame you." Sarah looked at the jet bridge one final time. Safety. Anonymity. Survival. Everything she'd wanted when she'd walked away from being Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez and became Sarah Bennett, civilian nurse. Except she'd already tried disappearing once, had already tried being invisible, had already tried telling herself that some fights weren't hers to finish, and 26 patients had paid the price for her silence. "No more running," Sarah said quietly. Mitchell's expression shifted to something almost predatory. "Then let's give these bastards something to remember." He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. "This is Colonel Ryan Mitchell requesting immediate tactical response. I have an active status operative under direct threat at Silvercrest Regional Airport. Authorization code Foxtrot 7 Delta. Threat assessment critical. Time is now." Sarah heard the change immediately, subtle but unmistakable. The terminal's ambient noise shifted. Security personnel suddenly moved with purpose. Gate agents looked up from their stations. The 2 teenagers who'd been sharing earbuds packed up quickly and moved toward a different gate. Mitchell hadn't called for backup. He'd activated a protocol. "What did you just do?" Sarah whispered. "Protected an asset." His eyes never left the 3 men who were now closer, positioning themselves around the gate. "Whether you knew it or not, you're still on the books as active military. That makes you my responsibility. And anyone trying to harm you just became an enemy combatant on American soil." One of the hunters, tall, shaved head, moving like someone who knew exactly how to hurt people efficiently, locked eyes with Sarah. He smiled, then he reached under his jacket. Mitchell moved faster than Sarah expected. His hand came up, military ID held high. "Federal officer, everyone down!" The terminal erupted into chaos. Passengers screamed, people dropped to the floor. The gate agent hit an emergency button, and the tall hunter with the shaved head pulled out a badge instead of a weapon. "Private security!" he shouted. "Stand down! We're here on legitimate business!" Mitchell didn't lower his ID. "Show me credentials, now!" The man approached slowly, hands visible. "Hospital security. We have authority to escort an employee off premises." "Your authority ends at the hospital door," Mitchell said coldly. "This is federal property, and the woman you're here to escort just claimed military protection. She's unstable. The CEO has documentation. I don't care if the CEO has the president's phone number. She's under military protection, which supersedes any civilian authority you think you have." Well, airport security arrived. Real security this time, not Blackwell's private enforcers. "What's the situation here?" Mitchell turned to them without lowering his guard. "I'm Colonel Ryan Mitchell, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. This woman is an active military operative under my protection. These 3 men attempted to approach her despite clear federal jurisdiction." The lead security officer, a woman in her 40s with captain's bars, looked between Mitchell and the hospital security team. "Sir, do you have documentation supporting that claim?" Mitchell handed her his phone. Whatever she saw made her expression change completely. "Clear the gate," she ordered her team. "Everyone not connected to this flight needs to move to adjacent gates immediately." "This is ridiculous," the tall hunter protested. "We're just trying to—" "Sir, I need you and your associates to come with me." The captain's tone left no room for argument. "You can explain your business to federal agents. They're en route now." Sarah's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You just made a fatal mistake." She showed the message to Mitchell. He read it, then smiled, cold and sharp. "Good. I was hoping Blackwell would escalate." Why? Because the bigger the threat he makes, the more jurisdiction we have to respond. Mitchell looked at the hospital security team being escorted away. Right now, this is a local incident, a nurse fleeing harassment. Unfortunate, but not unusual. But the moment he sent armed personnel to intercept a federally protected operative, this became a national security issue. Mitchell's phone buzzed. He read the screen, satisfaction crossing his face. Federal agents just arrived, and they're very interested in why a civilian CEO has access to private security with military training. Sarah's hands were shaking again. Not from fear this time, from the realization that she wasn't alone anymore. Wasn't fighting this battle with just her phone and her evidence. Mitchell noticed. "Hey, look at me." She did. "I don't know what you stumbled into," he said quietly, "but I know what that signal means. It means someone thought you were worth protecting even when you didn't know you needed protection. And whoever set up your deep cover status, they knew what they were doing. I don't understand any of this. Neither do I, yet." His phone buzzed again. "But we're about to get some answers." Two people in dark suits approached, FBI by the look of them. The woman was black, maybe 40, carrying herself like someone who'd earned her badge the hard way. The man was younger, Asian, sharp-eyed, and already assessing the situation. "Colonel Mitchell," the woman said, "I'm Special Agent Victoria Torres. This is Special Agent James Park. We received your alert." Mitchell handed her his phone. "Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez, listed as KIA 7 years ago, reactivated to deep cover status by unknown authority. Currently being pursued by private security working for Harborview Regional Medical Center CEO Jonathan Blackwell." Torres studied Sarah with new interest. "You're supposed to be dead." "So I've been told." Sarah's voice came out steadier than she expected. "Multiple times today." "Why does a hospital CEO want you dead?" Sarah pulled out her phone. "Because I have evidence that Harborview Regional is conducting illegal operations using federal funding." Torres and Park exchanged glances. Park spoke for the first time. "What kind of operations?" "I don't know exactly, but it involves altering patient records, using military-grade medical equipment, and 26 people whose treatment doesn't match their documented outcomes." Torres was already on her phone. "I need a warrant for Harborview Regional Medical Center. Yes, the whole facility, federal investigation. And I want CEO Jonathan Blackwell detained for questioning." Sarah's chest tightened. "He'll fight this. He has lawyers, connections, money." "He has connections in city government," Torres agreed. "But this just became a federal case involving potential harm to military personnel. His connections don't reach that far." "Final boarding call for Flight 1847 to Denver," the gate agent announced, voice shaky. Sarah looked at the plane one last time. The jet bridge was empty now. Everyone else had boarded, just her seat waiting, her escape route. Mitchell followed her gaze. "We can still put you on that flight if you want. Protective custody in Denver, safe house, full security." "And the investigation?" "Continues without you. We have your evidence, your testimony. We can build the case." Sarah almost laughed. "You mean you can try? But without me here to verify what I saw, Blackwell's lawyers will tear apart every photo, every document, every piece of evidence. They'll claim I faked it, that I was unstable, that I had a grudge." "Probably," Torres admitted. "So my choice is run and hope justice works without me, or stay and fight with a target on my back." That's about the size of it. The jet bridge door closed. The plane began backing away from the gate. Sarah watched her escape disappear into the morning sky. "I'm staying," she said. Mitchell nodded slowly. "Then we need to get you somewhere secure. Blackwell knows we're protecting you. He'll adjust his strategy." Torres gestured toward the terminal exit. "We have a secure facility downtown. You'll be safe there while we process the warrant." They moved as a group, Sarah in the middle, Mitchell and the two FBI agents forming a protective triangle around her. Airport security cleared their path. Other passengers gave them wide berth. Sarah's phone exploded with messages as they walked. "Unknown number. Big mistake. Unknown number. You think federal protection will save you? Unknown number. We own people you haven't even met yet." Mitchell saw her reading them. "Document every message, every threat. Every contact. It's all evidence. They exited the terminal into blinding sunlight. 3 black SUVs waited at the curb, federal vehicles with tinted windows and enough armor to stop small arms fire. Torres opened the rear door of the middle vehicle. "After you." Sarah hesitated. 7 years ago, she'd climbed into a similar vehicle that had taken her away from everything she'd known, away from Staff Sergeant Martinez and into the carefully constructed life of Sarah Bennett. Now she was climbing into another government vehicle that would take her where? "You're safe," Mitchell said quietly. "I promise you that." Sarah wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that federal protection meant something, that evidence mattered, that fighting back against someone like Jonathan Blackwell was possible. But she'd seen the patient records, had watched families grieve for people who shouldn't have died, had documented a system designed to erase people who asked too many questions. She climbed into the SUV anyway. The door closed with a heavy thunk. The vehicle pulled away from the curb, joining a convoy headed toward downtown Silvercrest Falls. Sarah looked back at the airport one final time. The plane to Denver was already taxiing toward the runway, taking her peaceful escape with it. No turning back now. Torres handed her a bottle of water. "We're going to need a full statement. Everything you saw, everything you documented, every interaction with Blackwell and his people." "How long do I have?" "The warrant will be served in approximately 90 minutes. We need your statement before then so we know what to look for." Sarah thought about 6 weeks of late nights, 6 weeks of piecing together a puzzle she still didn't fully understand, 6 weeks of knowing she was running out of time. "Where do you want me to start?" "The beginning," Park said from the front seat. "Who were you before you became Sarah Bennett?" The SUV merged onto the highway. Silvercrest Falls spread out ahead, a city of 500,000 people who had no idea what was happening in their premier hospital. Sarah took a breath. "My name is Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez. 7 years ago, I was deployed to Afghanistan as a combat medic. I saw things there, did things, learned things about how systems work when nobody's watching." "And how did you end up as a civilian nurse?" Torres asked. "I didn't. Not exactly." Sarah stared out the window. "I was recruited for something else, a program I can't talk about, one that required me to stop existing as Sarah Martinez." Mitchell leaned forward. Deep cover. "Yes, until 6 months ago, when my handler went dark. No contact, no check-ins, nothing." "Who was your handler?" Sarah met Mitchell's eyes. "I don't know his real name, but his code designation was Phantom 6, and the last message he sent me said, 'They found the hospital. Protect the evidence. Trust no one.'" The SUV went silent. Torres recovered first. "What hospital?" "I didn't know then. But now?" Sarah pulled up a specific photo on her phone, the one that had made her blood run cold when she'd first seen it, equipment she'd last seen in a black site facility in Kabul. "I think he meant Harborview Regional, and I think someone's been running an off-books operation there for a lot longer than 6 weeks. Park was already on his phone. "I'm calling the director. This just went from fraud investigation to potential national security breach." Mitchell stared at the photo. "That's not civilian medical equipment." "No," Sarah confirmed. "It's the same gear we used for enhanced interrogation subjects, monitoring equipment designed to keep people alive during procedures that would normally be fatal." "Jesus Christ," Torres breathed. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying 26 patients came to Harborview Regional for routine surgeries and left with altered charts. I'm saying federal money disappeared into a program that doesn't officially exist. And I'm saying the equipment in those sub-basement rooms wasn't bought for healing anyone." The convoy took an exit marked Federal Building, authorized personnel only. Sarah's phone buzzed one final time. She looked down, expecting another threat. Instead, she found a single sentence that made her entire body go cold. "Unknown number. Phantom 6 says hello." Her handler. The man who'd been dark for 6 months, the person who'd recruited her, trained her, embedded her in civilian life with instructions to wait for activation. He was watching. Which meant everything happening right now, the airport confrontation, the federal protection, the investigation, wasn't random chaos. It was a plan she'd been part of without even knowing it. Sarah looked at Mitchell, at Torres, at the federal building looming ahead. "We need to talk about what I really am," she said quietly. Because Sarah Bennett, the nurse, was always a cover story. And I think someone just activated the real mission. The SUV rolled to a stop in the underground parking garage of the federal building. Concrete pillars cast long shadows under harsh fluorescent lighting. The space smelled like motor oil and rain that had seeped through decades-old cracks. Mitchell's hand was already on his sidearm before the engine died. "Stay in the vehicle until we clear the area." Torres and Park exited first, moving with the precision of people who'd done this 1,000 times. They checked sightlines, exits, blind spots. Sarah watched them work, her own training cataloging the same details they were. 3 potential ambush points, 2 exits besides the elevator. Security cameras covering 70% of the space but leaving dark pockets near the stairwell. "Clear," Torres called. Mitchell opened Sarah's door. "Oh, move fast. Stay between us." They crossed the garage in tight formation. Sarah's footsteps echoed too loudly against concrete. The elevator waited with doors already open. Park had called it remotely, minimizing their exposure time. Inside, Torres pressed the button for the 7th floor. The doors closed with a soft hiss, sealing them in a metal box that suddenly felt too small. "Who else knows about Phantom 6? Mitchell asked. Sarah kept her eyes on the floor numbers climbing. "Nobody. That's the point of deep cover. Even I didn't know my real mission until 6 months ago when the messages started." "What messages?" "Instructions, locations to document, people to watch. All related to Harborview Regional, but I didn't understand the pattern until I found that equipment." She pulled out her phone, opened the encrypted files. "He told me to become invisible, blend in, wait for the signal." Park turned from his position by the door. "What signal?" "I don't know. He went dark before he could tell me." The elevator chimed. 7th floor. The doors opened onto a corridor lined with frosted glass offices. Federal seals on every door. The kind of place where careers were made and destroyed with equal efficiency. Torres led them to an interview room at the end of the hall. Soundproofed walls, one-way mirror, recording equipment built into the ceiling. Sarah had been in rooms like this before, but always on the other side of the interrogation. "Coffee?" Torres offered. "Information," Sarah countered. "You pulled my file the second Mitchell made that call. What did it say?" Torres and Park exchanged glances. Mitchell crossed his arms, curious. "You're right," Torres admitted. "Your file came back flagged at a clearance level I've never seen before. Most of it's redacted. What we can access shows you died in a training accident 7 years ago. Except there's a secondary file that says you're active deep cover under Phantom Protocol." "What's Phantom Protocol?" Mitchell asked. "That's the problem," Park said. "It doesn't officially exist. No program by that name in any database we can access. But the authorization codes are legitimate, Pentagon-level legitimate." Sarah sat down heavily in one of the metal chairs. "So someone with serious power put me in place at Harborview Regional 7 years ago and waited for whatever's happening there to surface. Or they put you there to make it surface," Mitchell suggested. "You said your handler told you to protect the evidence. Maybe you were never just documenting. Maybe you were the trigger." The thought made Sarah's skin crawl. 26 patients. 26 people who'd suffered while she'd played a role as the invisible nurse who asked too many questions. "If that's true," she said quietly, "then people died while I waited for orders that never came." "Or they died to create the evidence you needed to find," Torres said, not unkindly. "These operations, the ones that use people like they're disposable, they're designed to be invisible. The only way to expose them is from the inside." Sarah's hands clenched into fists on the table. "That doesn't make it right." "No, it makes it necessary." Torres sat down across from her. "I need you to walk me through everything. Start with when you first suspected something was wrong." Sarah took a breath, organizing 7 years of careful observation into coherent narrative. 3 months after I started at Harborview Regional, a patient died during what should have been routine gallbladder surgery. The chart said complications from anesthesia, but I was in that OR. I saw what happened. Which was? The anesthesiologist injected something that wasn't in the surgical plan. When I questioned it afterward, I was told I'd misread the labels, that I was new and confused. The attending surgeon backed up that story. "Did you report it?" "To the charge nurse. She told me everyone makes mistakes when they're learning. That doubt is normal for new nurses. Sarah's jaw tightened. 2 weeks later, the same anesthesiologist was involved in another unexpected death. Different patient, different surgery, same story about complications. Park was taking notes. You recognized a pattern. I recognized a possibility, but I had no proof, no leverage. I was a junior nurse against doctors with decades of experience, so I started documenting every surgery that anesthesiologists touched, every unexpected outcome, every chart that didn't quite match what I'd witnessed. How many incidents total? Over 3 years, 47 surgeries with questionable outcomes. 26 resulted in death or permanent disability. The rest had complications that led to extended hospital stays and additional procedures. Torres leaned forward. That's a serial killer operating in plain sight. That's what I thought at first, but the pattern was wrong for a single actor. Sarah pulled up a spreadsheet on her phone. The incident spread across multiple surgical teams, different doctors, different nurses, different times of day. The only consistent factor was that all patients had been flagged in the system with a specific billing code. What code? Research participant, except none of these patients had consented to research. None of them knew they'd been flagged. And when I tried to trace where the code came from, every path led back to CEO Blackwell's office. Mitchell swore under his breath. He was selecting victims. Not just selecting, profiling. Every patient who died fit a specific demographic. No close family, limited financial resources, medical histories that made complications plausible. People who wouldn't be missed. People whose deaths wouldn't trigger investigations. The room went silent. Sarah could see the shift in their expressions. This wasn't fraud anymore. This was something darker. The equipment you photographed, Park said carefully. The gear from black site facilities. What was it being used for? Sarah's throat tightened. I only got into the sub-basement levels twice, both times at night when the building was nearly empty. The first time I found the equipment rooms, monitoring stations, drug storage that included compounds I'd last seen used on enemy combatants, and surgical suites designed for procedures that aren't legal on American soil. Did you see them being used? The second time I went down, yes. There was a patient on one of the tables, unconscious, hooked up to the monitoring equipment, and a team in surgical gear performing a procedure I didn't recognize. Did they see you? No. I stayed in the ventilation crawl space, documented what I could through the observation window, got out before anyone noticed. Sarah's hands were shaking again. The patient on that table had been admitted 3 days earlier for a hernia repair, routine outpatient procedure, but his chart said he'd had complications and needed extended observation. Do you know what happened to him? He was discharged 2 weeks later. I checked on him during my shift. He seemed fine, normal, except when I asked how he was feeling, he couldn't remember the surgery at all, not the prep, not the recovery. Nothing from a 3-day window around the procedure. Torres typed rapidly on her laptop. Memory manipulation. That's not standard surgical amnesia. No, it's not. Sarah met her eyes. Whatever they're doing in those sub-basement rooms, it involves more than just illegal procedures. They're experimenting on people, and Jonathan Blackwell is running the program. Park's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. The warrant team just hit Harborview Regional. Blackwell's not there. Security says he left 30 minutes ago and didn't say where he was going. Mitchell stood abruptly. He ran. Or he's coming here, Torres said. This facility's location isn't secret. If Blackwell has the connection Sarah thinks he has, he knows exactly where we brought her. Sarah's phone buzzed. She looked down, already knowing what she'd find. Unknown number. You really think concrete and federal badges will protect you? She showed the message to Torres. He's watching, right now. He knows I'm here. Torres was already moving, pulling her sidearm. Park, get building security on alert. Mitchell, stay with the asset. Nobody in or out of this floor without my clearance. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. Find out how Blackwell's getting real-time intelligence on a secure federal facility. Torres headed for the door. Because someone inside this building is feeding him information. The door closed behind her. Sarah was left with Mitchell and Park in a room that suddenly felt more like a trap than a sanctuary. Mitchell checked his weapon, then positioned himself between Sarah and the door. How good is Blackwell's reach? I don't know the extent, but he's had 7 years to build it, and if he's running an off-books program using federal money, he's got leverage on people who should know better. Pentagon people, Park said quietly. That's the only way this works. Someone high enough to authorize Phantom Protocol, high enough to bury your death, high enough to keep a black site program running inside a civilian hospital. Sarah's stomach dropped. You're saying this goes beyond Blackwell? I'm saying Blackwell's the face of the operation, but someone above him gave the orders, someone with the authority to make a combat medic disappear and reappear as a civilian nurse, someone who could activate your deep cover status with a single message. Phantom 6. Maybe. Or maybe Phantom 6 was just another piece on the board. Park pulled up something on his tablet. I'm running a search on Pentagon funding to Harborview Regional. If there's a paper trail, we'll find it. Mitchell's radio crackled. Colonel Mitchell, this is building security. We have a situation at the main entrance. Mitchell keyed the radio. What kind of situation? Legal team demanding access to interview subject Sarah Bennett. They have a court order signed by a federal judge. We're required to grant access. Sarah and Mitchell locked eyes. Blackwell's lawyers, she whispered. Delay them, Mitchell ordered. I need 5 minutes to verify the court order's legitimacy. Sir, they're threatening to file obstruction charges against everyone in this building if we don't comply immediately. Mitchell swore. Hold position. I'm coming down. He looked at Sarah. Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Agent Torres, understand? Sarah nodded, her training overriding her fear. Understood. Mitchell left. The lock engaged with a heavy click. Park continued working on his tablet, fingers flying across the screen. This doesn't make sense. Court orders take hours to process, even on emergency petitions. How did Blackwell get one filed, reviewed, and signed in under 90 minutes? Because he has a judge in his pocket, Sarah said. Or multiple judges, or someone who can forge documents convincing enough to get past federal security. That's a federal crime. Add it to the list. Sarah stood, pacing the small room. Her military instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The lawyers showing up this fast. The court order. The precise timing. This was a distraction. Where's the server room in this building? She asked suddenly. Park looked up. What? The server room, where all the data is stored, where someone could access files or wipe evidence if they had physical access to the system. 3rd floor, why? Because if I wanted to destroy evidence while everyone was focused on a legal fight at the front door, I'd send a second team to the server room. Park's eyes widened. He grabbed his radio. Security, this is Special Agent Park. I need eyes on the 3rd floor server room immediately. Static. Security, respond. More static. Then a different voice came through, cold and professional. This is private security contractor responding to federal emergency. We have authorization to secure sensitive areas during elevated threat conditions. Park went pale. Who authorized your entry? Federal Marshal Service. Badge numbers and documentation were verified at entry. We're just doing our job, Agent Park. Sarah's blood ran cold. They're inside the building. Park was already running for the door. Stay here. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. He disappeared into the corridor. The lock clicked. Sarah was alone. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You cost me a lot of money, Sarah. More than you can imagine. She typed back without thinking. Who are you? The response came immediately. Someone who's been watching you become exactly what we needed you to be. Sarah's hands shook as she typed, Phantom 6? Unknown number, close. But Phantom 6 was just the handler. I'm the architect. Why are you doing this? Unknown number. Because some missions require years of preparation, and some assets don't know they're assets until the moment they're activated. You were perfect, Sarah. A combat medic with a conscience. Someone who'd see what was wrong and couldn't help but fight it. We knew if we put you in that hospital and waited, eventually you'd force the confrontation we needed. Sarah felt sick. The patients. The people who died. You let that happen? Unknown number. We facilitated it. There's a difference. Every person who died served a purpose. Their sacrifice exposed a network that's been operating for 15 years. You should be proud. You're insane. Unknown number. I'm effective. And right now, Jonathan Blackwell is learning that he was never in control. You're learning that your evidence was always part of the plan. And in about 3 minutes, everyone in that building is going to learn what happens when you threaten an operation this important. Sarah stared at the message. 3 minutes. She looked around the interview room. One door, one-way mirror. Recording equipment built into walls that were probably reinforced. This wasn't a safe room. It was a kill box. Sarah moved to the door, tested the lock. Solid, electronic, no manual override from the inside. The one-way mirror was next. She grabbed a chair, slammed it against the glass. The chair bounced off. The mirror didn't even crack. Bulletproof. Probably explosion-resistant, which meant whoever had designed this room had designed it to contain someone, to hold them in place while something happened. Sarah's military training kicked into overdrive. She scanned the room again, looking for anything she could use. The table was bolted to the floor. The chairs were lightweight metal, useless as weapons. The ceiling was acoustic tile over concrete. Wait, the ceiling. Sarah climbed onto the table, pushed against one of the tiles. It lifted. Beyond it, darkness and the smell of dust and old air. Crawl space. Maybe 18 inches of clearance. Enough. She pulled herself up into the narrow space, replacing the tile behind her. The darkness was absolute. She waited for her eyes to adjust, breathing slowly through her nose. Far below, she heard voices. Shouting. The electronic lock on the interview room door engaging. Someone was coming. Sarah crawled through the ceiling space, following the support beams by touch. Her fingers found dust, old wiring, the occasional pipe. Every movement made noise, fabric against metal, her breathing too loud in the confined space. Behind her, she heard the interview room door open. She's gone. A male voice, unfamiliar. Check the ceiling. Sarah moved faster, ignoring the scraping sounds. She needed distance, needed to find another access point before they came after her. The crawl space branched. She took the right path, following what felt like the main ventilation duct. 30 feet ahead, a dim rectangle of light showed through metal grating. Air vent. Sarah reached it, tested the grating. Screwed in place, but the screws were old. She worked one free with her fingers, then another. The grating came loose. Below was another corridor. Empty. Emergency lighting casting everything in red. Sarah dropped through, landing in a crouch. Her knees protested but held. Gunfire erupted somewhere above her. She ran. The corridor ended at a stairwell. Sarah took the stairs down, moving fast but controlled. Her training told her to find an exit, get out of the building, disappear. But her evidence was still in that interview room. Her phone was still transmitting location data. And somewhere in this building, people she'd trusted were fighting whatever force Blackwell had sent. Second floor. She heard voices, Mitchell's among them. Fall back. They're armed and organized. This isn't random security contractors. Sarah pushed through the stairwell door into chaos. The second-floor corridor had become a battlefield. Federal agents behind overturned desks, men in tactical gear advancing with military precision. Gunfire and shouts and the acrid smell of spent ammunition. Mitchell saw her. His eyes went wide. What the hell are you doing here? The interview room was a trap. Sarah dropped behind the desk next to him. Someone wanted me isolated. Someone succeeded. Mitchell fired 3 rounds down the corridor, driving the tactical team back momentarily. We've got 8 hostiles between us and the exit. Torres is pinned down on the 3rd floor, and Park's trying to prevent them from accessing the server room. They're not here for the servers, Sarah said. They're here for me. Then they're going to be disappointed, Mitchell reloaded, because you're getting out of this building alive even if I have to carry you out myself. A voice called from the tactical team's position. Cease fire. We have federal authority. Show me documentation, Mitchell shouted back. We're operating under emergency counterterrorism protocols. Stand down and surrender the target. Sarah's blood ran cold. Counterterrorism. They're classifying me as a terrorist threat. That's impossible. You're a protected operative. Not if someone high enough rewrote my file. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. Think about it. If I'm flagged as a domestic terrorist threat, Federal agents are legally required to hand me over to specialized teams, and those teams can take me anywhere, do anything, all under national security protocols. Mitchell's expression hardened. They're trying to black bag you. They're trying to make me disappear. Again. More gunfire. Closer this time. Torres's voice crackled over Mitchell's radio. Colonel, I've got civilians trapped on 3. I can't leave them. How many? 12 office workers. They were in the wrong place when this started. Mitchell swore. Can you get them to the north stairwell? Negative. Hostiles have it locked down. Sarah looked at Mitchell. You need to help her. I'm not leaving you. You're not. I'm giving you an order. Sarah's voice carried the authority of someone who'd led combat operations in hostile territory. Those civilians didn't ask to be part of this. I did. Get them out. Mitchell hesitated. In his eyes, Sarah saw the war between duty and honor. There's a service elevator at the east end, she continued. Maintenance access. It'll take you down to the loading dock. Take Torres and the civilians. I'll draw the tactical team away from your position. That's suicide. That's strategy. Sarah grabbed his radio. Agent Torres, this is Sarah Martinez. I'm creating a diversion. When you hear it, move fast. Get those people out. Sarah, don't. Sarah didn't wait for protests. She stood, moving before Mitchell could stop her. The tactical team saw her immediately. Target acquired. Moving to intercept. Sarah ran, not toward the exit, toward the stairwell leading up. The tactical team pursued exactly as she'd expected. Military training, structured response. They'd follow the target, secure the asset, complete the mission. She hit the stairwell at full speed, taking stairs 3 at a time. 4th floor. 5th. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. Behind her, boots pounded on metal stairs. 6th floor. Sarah burst through the door into another corridor. Offices, conference rooms, a maze of cubicles and glass walls. She needed cover, needed to slow them down. The conference room at the end had a reinforced door, probably a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. If she could get inside, lock it down, maybe buy enough time for Mitchell and Torres to evacuate the civilians. Sarah sprinted for it. 20 feet. 15. The door was locked. Electronic keypad. Behind her, the stairwell door crashed open. Sarah spun, hands up. I surrender. Don't shoot. The tactical team leader stepped forward, weapon trained on her center mass. Sarah Martinez, you're being detained under federal counterterrorism protocols. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. I'm not resisting. On your knees, hands behind your head. Sarah complied, her mind racing. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Federal counterterrorism teams didn't operate like private military contractors. They didn't move with the precision of people following corporate orders. These weren't federal agents. Who's paying you? She asked. Shichiltsen? The team leader's expression didn't change. Secure the target, prepare for transport. 2 team members moved forward with zip ties. That's when the lights went out. Complete darkness. Emergency power hadn't kicked in yet. Sarah moved on pure instinct. She dropped flat, rolled left, swept her leg where she knew the closest team member would be standing. Contact. He went down hard, shouts, confusion. Weapon lights clicking on, sweeping the corridor. Sarah kept moving through the darkness, using the light beams to navigate away from them. Her fingers found a door handle. She twisted, dove through, closed it silently behind her. Storage closet, shelves of office supplies, barely enough room to stand. She held her breath, listening. Footsteps passed her hiding spot. Voices coordinating search patterns. The professional calm of people trained not to panic. Sarah's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, dimming the screen to almost nothing. Unknown number. Impressive. But there's nowhere to go. This building is locked down. Every exit monitored. Every stairwell covered. She typed back, Then why are you still texting me? If you have me trapped, why not just take me? Unknown number. Because I need you to understand what you've become. 7 years ago, you were a soldier following orders. Now you're something more valuable. You're a catalyst. Someone who can expose corruption simply by refusing to stay quiet. What do you want from me? Unknown number. I want you to finish what we started. Jonathan Blackwell is a symptom, not the disease. The people who funded his operation, the ones who authorized Phantom Protocol. the network that's been running black site experiments on American citizens for 15 years. I want all of it exposed, and you're the only one who can do it. Why me? Unknown number. Because you have something no other asset has. You have a conscience that won't let you quit, and evidence that will bring them all down. Now stop hiding and finish this. The lights flickered back on. Sarah heard footsteps approaching her hiding spot. She looked around the storage closet desperately. No weapons, no tools, just office supplies and cleaning products. Wait, cleaning products. Sarah grabbed a bottle of industrial cleaner and a spray bottle of glass treatment. Beneath them, she found what she needed, a container of powdered chlorine bleach. Basic chemistry. Bleach plus ammonia-based cleaner equals toxic gas. Not enough to kill, but enough to create chaos. She mixed the compounds quickly, using an empty mop bucket as a container. The chemical reaction started immediately, harsh fumes rising from the mixture. Sarah shoved the bucket against the door, grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall mount, and waited. The door opened. Toxic fumes billowed out into the corridor. The tactical team member recoiled, coughing, eyes streaming. Sarah hit him with the fire extinguisher. He went down. She grabbed his weapon, compact rifle, fully loaded, and his radio. The radio crackled. Target is armed. Repeat. Target has acquired weapon. Authorization to use lethal force granted. Sarah ran. The corridor stretched ahead. She took the first turn she found, moving toward what she hoped was another stairwell. Behind her, the tactical team regrouped. Ahead, a figure stepped out from an office. Sarah nearly fired before recognizing Park. He looked like he'd been through hell, torn suit, bleeding from a cut above his eye. "Server room?" she asked. "Wiped. They got there first." His expression was grim. "Everything we had on Blackwell is gone." "Not everything." Sarah pulled out her phone. "I have backups, multiple locations. They can't erase all of it." "Then we need to get you somewhere safe enough to release it." More footsteps, coming from both directions now. Park pulled his sidearm. "How many rounds you have?" 30, maybe 40 if I'm lucky." "Not enough." He looked at the offices around them. "We need another exit." Sarah scanned the floor plan in her mind. Fire escape. Southwest corner. Maintenance crews use it for equipment access. They moved together, covering angles. Sarah's military training synchronized perfectly with Park's FBI tactical protocols. The fire escape was where she remembered. A metal door marked emergency exit only. Park pushed it open. Alarms screamed. They didn't care. They hit the metal stairs at a run, descending into the alley behind the federal building. Rain had started falling. The alley was dark, wet, filled with dumpsters and abandoned pallets. A black SUV sat at the far end, engine running. Sarah and Park froze. The driver's door opened. Colonel Mitchell stepped out, followed by Torres. "Get in," Mitchell ordered. "We don't have much time." Sarah and Park ran for the vehicle. They piled into the back seats. Mitchell hit the gas before the doors were fully closed. The SUV rocketed out of the alley into downtown Silvercrest Falls traffic. "The civilians?" Sarah asked. "Safe," Torres said. "Evacuated through the loading dock before the building went into lockdown." "The tactical team?" "Still inside, but they'll figure out you're gone soon enough." Mitchell took a hard right turn. "We need somewhere to regroup, somewhere Blackwell can't track us." Sarah thought fast. "I know a place. It's not on any official records. Personal safe house I set up 3 years ago when I realized how deep this went." "Address?" Sarah gave him the location, an industrial district on the east side of the city. Abandoned warehouses and closed factories. The kind of place nobody looked twice at. They drove in tense silence. Sarah watched the city pass by outside rain-streaked windows. Somewhere in those buildings, Jonathan Blackwell was planning his next move. Somewhere in the government bureaucracy, someone powerful enough to activate Phantom Protocol was watching this unfold. And somewhere in the digital ether, an unknown number kept sending messages that suggested Sarah had been dancing to someone else's choreography all along. Her phone buzzed one more time. She looked down. Unknown number, final move approaching. "Are you ready to see who's really been playing this game?" Sarah showed the message to Mitchell. He read it, jaw tightening. "Whoever this is, they're about to make their presence known." "How do you know?" "Because I just got a message too." He showed her his phone. Unknown number. Colonel Mitchell, your presence in Silvercrest Falls was never coincidence. Check your original deployment orders from 6 months ago. Authorization code November, Phantom 6. You were always meant to be Sarah's extraction team. Sarah and Mitchell stared at each other. 6 months ago, Mitchell said slowly, I was ordered to Silvercrest Falls for routine liaison duties with local military recruitment offices. The orders came from Pentagon brass. I never questioned them. But they weren't routine, Sarah whispered. No, they were positioning. Mitchell's expression hardened. Someone's been moving pieces on a board we didn't even know existed. The SUV pulled into the industrial district. Rain fell harder now, turning the empty streets into rivers of reflected neon and streetlight. Sarah's safe house was a converted warehouse tucked between a closed textile factory and an automotive repair shop that only opened on weekends. She'd rented it under a false name, paid cash for 2 years in advance, stocked it with supplies for exactly this kind of emergency. They parked in the loading bay. The warehouse door rolled up with a metallic groan. Inside was sparse: cots, water, MREs, a table with maps and equipment Sarah had accumulated over 3 years of preparation. You've been planning for this, Torres observed. I've been planning for the possibility that everything could go wrong simultaneously, Sarah corrected. Turns out I wasn't paranoid enough. Park was already setting up a laptop. We need to compile everything you have. Every photo, every document, every piece of evidence. And we need to release it somewhere Blackwell can't suppress it. Multiple platforms, Sarah agreed. News outlets, congressional oversight committees, inspector general offices. Flood the zone so fast they can't contain it. Mitchell's phone rang. He checked the number, his expression growing cautious. It's the Pentagon, direct line from Special Operations Command. He answered on speaker. Colonel Mitchell. Colonel, this is General Harrison Westbrook. I understand you've been involved in an incident at the Silvercrest Falls Federal Building. Sir, yes, sir. I was protecting a military asset under federal custody when a tactical team attempted to black bag an operative under Phantom Protocol, Westbrook interrupted. I'm aware. I'm also aware that operative is with you right now. Sarah's blood ran cold. If the Pentagon knew her location, Sir, Mitchell said carefully, with respect, I need to verify your identity before... Colonel, I authorized Phantom Protocol 7 years ago. I recruited Sarah Martinez, and I've been watching this operation unfold exactly as designed. Westbrook's voice carried the weight of someone used to absolute authority. Put her on the phone. Mitchell looked at Sarah. She nodded. Staff Sergeant Martinez, Westbrook said when Sarah took the phone. Welcome back from the dead. Sir, I need to understand what's happening. Who activated my status? Who sent those messages? Who's been running this operation? I have. All of it. From the beginning. Westbrook paused. 7 years ago, we identified a black site program operating inside civilian infrastructure. Illegal human experimentation funded through ghost appropriations. We needed someone inside. Someone who could document everything without triggering security protocols. Someone expendable enough that their death wouldn't raise questions, but skilled enough to survive long enough to matter. You used me as bait. I used you as a scalpel, precision instrument for a surgical operation. Westbrook's tone didn't carry apology. Jonathan Blackwell was always the visible target, but the people funding him, the network that's been running these programs for 15 years, they're the real enemy. And you've just helped us identify every single one of them. The 26 patients who died were already terminal, already selected by Blackwell's criteria. We didn't kill them, Sergeant. We documented their murders and made sure those deaths would mean something. Sarah felt sick. That's not justice. No, it's war, and wars require sacrifices. Westbrook's voice hardened. In approximately 90 seconds, every major news outlet in this country is going to receive a data dump containing everything you've documented, every photo, every audio recording, every piece of evidence showing illegal human experimentation funded by federal dollars. The network we've been hunting will be forced into the open, and you, Sergeant Martinez, will be credited with the biggest whistleblower revelation in military history. I don't want credit. I want those people held accountable. You'll get both. But first, you need to survive the next 24 hours. Because the people we're exposing have resources you can't imagine, and they're going to come for you with everything they have. The phone went dead. Sarah stood frozen. Around her, Mitchell, Torres, and Park stared with varying expressions of shock and understanding. He planned all of this, Torres whispered. From the beginning. Your hiring at the hospital, your investigation, even the confrontation at the airport. I was never in control, Sarah said numbly. I was just playing a role someone else wrote. Mitchell's phone buzzed with an alert. Then Torres's, then Park's. They all looked at their screens simultaneously. Breaking news, Park read aloud. Federal whistleblower exposes illegal human experimentation program. Documents show systematic patient abuse at Harborview Regional Medical Center. CEO Jonathan Blackwell named as primary suspect. Sarah's phone exploded with notifications, news alerts, message requests, calls from numbers she didn't recognize. The story was everywhere. Every major outlet, every news network. The evidence she'd spent 3 years collecting was now public record. She should have felt vindicated, relieved, victorious. Instead, she felt like a puppet whose strings had just become visible. They're going to come for us, she said quietly. Westbrook was right. We've just made ourselves targets for everyone involved in this network. Then we need to move, Mitchell said. New location, better defenses, and we need to do it now before... The warehouse's power cut out. Darkness dropped like a curtain. Through the windows, Sarah saw vehicle headlights approaching. Multiple vehicles. Moving fast. No sirens. No lights beyond their headlamps cutting through rain. They found us, Torres whispered. Sarah grabbed the rifle she'd taken from the tactical team member. How? This location isn't in any database. Nobody knows about it except... Her phone buzzed one final time. She looked at the screen, already knowing what she'd find. Unknown number. You're exactly where we need you to be. The vehicles stopped outside. Doors opened. Shadows moved through rain-soaked darkness. And Sarah realized with absolute certainty that they'd never been running from the trap. They'd been running straight into it. Mitchell killed the warehouse's interior lights before the approaching vehicles finished parking. The space plunged into absolute darkness, broken only by rain-diffused headlights cutting through grimy windows. Northeast corner, Sarah whispered. Maintenance tunnel. Connects to the storm drain system. How do you know? Torres asked. Because I mapped every exit before I rented this place. Sarah was already moving, feeling her way along the wall. 3 years of planning for exactly this scenario. Park grabbed the laptop with their compiled evidence. Mitchell and Torres formed a protective triangle around Sarah, weapons drawn. The headlights outside cut simultaneously. Silence rushed in like water filling a drowning chamber. Sarah counted shadows through the windows. 12. Maybe 15. Moving with tactical precision toward the warehouse's 3 entrances. They're coordinating, Mitchell murmured. Military trained. Not police. Not federal. Private contractors, Sarah said. Same ones from the federal building, which means someone paid a fortune to make this look like an accident. Torres checked her weapon. Warehouse fire. Electrical malfunction. 4 bodies, 2 burned to identify quickly. The northeast corner maintenance hatch was exactly where Sarah remembered, a steel plate set flush with the concrete floor. She found it by touch, her fingers locating the recessed handle. Locked. Problem, she whispered. How big a problem? Mitchell asked. Padlock I installed for security. Combination lock. I need light to see the numbers. Mitchell swore under his breath. How much time do we have? The answer came as shattered glass. The western windows exploded inward. Canisters tumbled across the concrete floor, hissing. Gas! Torres shouted. Move! Sarah's eyes immediately started burning. Tear gas. Professional grade. The kind that incapacitated in seconds and lingered for hours. She dropped to the floor where the gas was thinner, holding her breath. Her fingers found the padlock again. She needed to see the combination dial. Needed light without giving away their position. Park's laptop screen suddenly glowed. He'd angled it toward the floor, using minimal brightness. It was enough. Sarah's trembling fingers spun the combination dial. Right to 17, left to 34, right to 8. The lock clicked open. She yanked the hatch. Below was darkness and the smell of stagnant water. Go, Mitchell ordered. Park went first, laptop clutched to his chest. Torres followed. Sarah started down the metal ladder. Mitchell fired 3 rounds back toward the windows, covering fire. Then he was dropping through the hatch behind her, pulling it closed as Sarah's feet hit water. The storm drain was exactly as she'd mapped it, 8 feet in diameter, 3 feet of water flowing toward the river, cold, foul-smelling, but navigable. Which way? Torres asked, her voice echoing. Downstream, 200 yards to an access junction. From there we can reach the street-level maintenance entrance near the old railway depot. They moved through the tunnel in single file. Sarah led, using the flashlight function on her phone at minimum brightness. The water was deeper than she'd anticipated, 4 feet in some sections, forcing them to wade carefully. Behind them, the warehouse hatch clanged open. They're following, Mitchell said. Move faster. Sarah pushed through the water, counting her steps. The tunnel curved, branched. She took the left fork based on memory, hoping she'd remembered correctly. Gunfire erupted behind them. Muzzle flashes lit the tunnel like strobe lights. Bullets ricocheted off concrete walls. They dove into a side passage, smaller, tighter, barely 4 feet in diameter. We're trapped, Park gasped. This is a dead end. No, Sarah pointed ahead. Vertical shaft. Leads to a street grate. We can climb up. The shaft was there. A 15-foot climb with rusted ladder rungs set into the concrete. Sarah went first, testing each rung before trusting her weight to it. Her hand found the street grate. She pushed. It didn't budge. Stuck, she called down. Probably hasn't been opened in years. Stand aside, Mitchell ordered. Sarah flattened against the shaft wall. Mitchell climbed past her, braced his back against one wall and his feet against the grate. He pushed with everything he had. The grate screamed in protest. Rust flaked, metal bent. It flew open. Rain poured through the opening. Sweet, fresh, freedom. They emerged in an alley behind the railway depot, 3 blocks from the warehouse. Close enough to hear sirens responding to the gunfire reports. Far enough that they had a chance. We need transportation, Torres said. My phone's dead. Can't call for backup. Sarah looked around. The railway depot had been abandoned for 5 years. But across the street, a 24-hour truck stop still operated. 18-wheelers, delivery vans, private vehicles. There, she pointed. We steal something. Get out of the city before they set up roadblocks. Mitchell checked his weapon. I'm almost out of ammunition. You? 15 rounds, Sarah said. 8, Torres added. Park looked up from his laptop, which he'd somehow kept dry. The evidence upload completed. Everything Sarah documented is now on 63 different servers across 17 countries. They can't suppress it anymore. They can still suppress us, Sarah said. Dead witnesses don't testify. They crossed the street in pairs, Mitchell and Torres first, clearing the approach. Then Sarah and Park, moving fast. The truck stop parking lot was half full. Sarah spotted what she needed, an older model sedan near the back. No alarm system, no anti-theft technology beyond a basic steering wheel lock. That one, she said. Mitchell smashed the driver's window with his elbow. The glass shattered. He reached inside, popped the lock, examined the steering column. Haven't hot-wired a car since basic training, he muttered. Let's hope I remember how. Sarah kept watch while he worked. The truck stop's convenience store glowed with fluorescent light. Inside, a clerk counted lottery tickets. A trucker poured coffee. Normal people doing normal things while 3 blocks away, a tactical team hunted federal witnesses through storm drains. The sedan's engine turned over. Get in, Mitchell ordered. They piled inside. Mitchell hit the gas before the doors fully closed. The sedan rocketed out of the parking lot onto rain-slicked streets. No headlights, just speed and darkness and the desperate hope that they could disappear before someone noticed. Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number, impressive resourcefulness. But there's nowhere to run. We control the exits. We own the authorities. And we've just activated something you're going to regret. She showed the message to Mitchell while he drove. What can they activate that's worse than armed contractors hunting us? I don't know, but I don't want to find out the hard way. Torres was on her backup phone, trying multiple numbers. Nobody's answering, not my field office, not local police, not even my partner who always answers. They've isolated us, Park said. Cut off our communications. Made sure anyone we call either won't answer or can't help. The sedan raced through industrial neighborhoods toward the highway. Sarah watched the city pass by outside rain-streaked windows. Somewhere in those buildings was Jonathan Blackwell. Somewhere in the Pentagon was General Westbrook watching his operation unfold. Somewhere in the shadows was whoever had been texting her, orchestrating moves on a board she couldn't fully see. They hit the highway entrance ramp doing 70. A roadblock waited at the top. Police cars. Officers with weapons drawn. Spotlight sweeping toward their approaching vehicle. Mitchell didn't slow down. Hold on. He yanked the wheel hard right, taking the sedan off-road through the grass median. They bounced violently. Sarah's head cracked against the roof. The suspension screamed in protest. Behind them, the police scrambled to respond, but Mitchell was already back on pavement, taking an exit marked Industrial Access, No Outlet. This doesn't go anywhere, Torres said. It goes away from the roadblock, Mitchell countered. We'll figure out the rest. The access road wound through a maze of warehouses and distribution centers. All closed, all dark. The rain intensified, turning visibility to nearly zero. Sarah's military training assessed their situation with brutal clarity. Limited ammunition, no backup, surrounded by hostile forces. Communication cut off, transportation compromised. They were losing. We need to change tactics, she said. Stop running. Start attacking. Mitchell glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Explain. They're hurting us. Every roadblock, every pursuer. They're pushing us exactly where they want us, which means we need to go somewhere they don't expect. Like where? Sarah pulled up a map on her phone. The industrial district, the waterfront, the downtown federal complex. She studied the geography, looking for options. Then she saw it. Harborview Regional Medical Center, she said quietly. We go back to where this started. Torres turned in her seat. That's insane. Blackwell's security will be waiting. Exactly. They'll expect us to avoid the hospital, to hide, to keep running. Sarah's mind raced through tactical possibilities. But if we go there, if we force the confrontation on our terms, we can document everything in real time, live stream it, make it impossible for them to disappear us without the whole world watching. Park was already typing on his laptop. I can set up a live feed, multiple platforms. The second we walk into that hospital, everything gets broadcast. They'll cut the signal, Torres argued. Not if I route it through satellite uplinks and cellular backups. They'd have to shut down every communications network in the city simultaneously. Mitchell slowed the sedan, considering. It's a massive risk. Everything's a risk at this point, Sarah said. But at least this way we control the narrative. We force them to act in the open. No more shadows. No more disappearances. Mitchell's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. Harborview Regional, it is. He turned the sedan around, heading back toward the city center. The hospital was 15 minutes away. 15 minutes to prepare for a confrontation that would either expose everything or end with 4 bodies in unmarked graves. Sarah checked her rifle. 15 rounds. She made them count in her head. Assigned each round a purpose. A target. A consequence. Park's fingers flew across his keyboard. Setting up the broadcast infrastructure now. We'll go live the second we enter the hospital's main entrance. What about security footage? Torres asked. They'll have cameras everywhere. We want them to, Sarah said. Every camera becomes evidence. Every security guard becomes a witness. The more documentation, the harder it is for them to claim this didn't happen. The hospital appeared ahead. 12 stories of glass and steel, lights burning in scattered windows. The emergency entrance glowing red and white. Mitchell parked 2 blocks away. They approached on foot, moving through rain that had become a downpour. Sarah's phone buzzed continuously now, messages flooding in faster than she could read them. Unknown number. Turn back. Final warning. Unknown number. You have no idea what you're walking into. Unknown number. This building isn't what you think it is. She ignored them all. The main entrance was ahead. Glass doors. Security desk. Metal detectors. All the normal trappings of a civilian hospital. Park hit a button on his laptop. We're live. Everything we see. Everything we say. Everything that happens. Streaming to 16 platforms simultaneously. Sarah took a breath, squared her shoulders, walked through those glass doors like she owned the place. The security guard at the desk looked up. Recognition flashed across his face. His hand moved toward the phone. "Don't," Mitchell said quietly. His weapon wasn't visible, but his tone carried unmistakable authority. "We're here to see CEO Blackwell. I suggest you call him and let him know we've arrived." The guard hesitated. His training told him to hit the panic button. His survival instinct told him these 4 people weren't making requests. He picked up the phone. Dialed. "Sir, we have a situation in the main lobby. Sarah Bennett just walked in with 3 federal agents." A pause. Then the guard's expression changed completely. "Yes, sir. I'll direct them immediately." He hung up, looking at Sarah with something between fear and awe. "Mr. Blackwell is waiting for you. Executive level, 12th floor." Sarah exchanged glances with Mitchell. This was too easy, too clean. They were expected. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was silent except for the mechanical hum of cables and the quiet breathing of 4 people preparing for confrontation. Park kept his laptop open, broadcasting everything. The doors opened onto a hallway Sarah had never seen before. This wasn't the executive suite she'd imagined. This was something else. Medical equipment lined the walls. Monitoring stations. Observation windows looking into rooms she couldn't fully see. "This is the sub-basement level I documented," she whispered. "But we went up, not down." "Misdirection," Torres said. "The building schematics are wrong. This floor doesn't officially exist." At the end of the hallway, double doors stood open, waiting. They moved forward in formation. Every instinct screaming this was a trap. Every tactical calculation saying they had no choice but to spring it. Beyond the doors was a conference room, glass walls, a table that could seat 20. And at the head of that table, CEO Jonathan Blackwell sat perfectly calm, perfectly composed, perfectly confident. He wasn't alone. 6 men in suits flanked the table, corporate lawyers by the look of them, but their eyes carried military precision. Their posture suggested weapons hidden under expensive tailoring. "Sarah," Blackwell said warmly, "I'm so glad you decided to come back. We have a great deal to discuss." Mitchell raised his weapon. "Jonathan Blackwell, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, illegal human experimentation, and Colonel Mitchell, please." Blackwell's smile didn't waver. "Put the weapon away. This conversation doesn't require theatrics." "This isn't a conversation," Sarah said. "This is a confession. Everything you've done, every patient you've harmed, every life you've destroyed, it's all being broadcast right now to thousands of people." Blackwell glanced at Park's laptop. "Is it? How fascinating. Tell me, Agent Park, are you streaming through the hospital's guest Wi-Fi or your cellular connection?" Park's expression flickered. "Both, with satellite backup." "All of which I control." Blackwell pressed a button on a remote. The conference room's glass walls suddenly displayed multiple video feeds, news broadcasts, social media platforms, government websites. Every single one showed Sarah's face with the same headline, "Domestic terrorist suspect sought in federal building attack." "Your evidence disappeared approximately 30 minutes ago," Blackwell continued. "Every server, every backup, every copy, replaced with fabricated material showing you as the architect of an elaborate fraud scheme designed to extort this hospital." Torres stepped forward. "That's impossible. The encryption was breakable by someone with sufficient resources, which I have. What you're broadcasting right now isn't exposing me, Sarah. It's documenting your final terrorist act before federal authorities were forced to neutralize the threat." Sarah's blood ran cold. "You're going to kill us and claim it was self-defense." "I'm going to ensure 4 dangerous individuals who attacked federal agents and broke into a hospital with weapons were stopped before they could harm innocent patients." Blackwell stood, smoothing his suit. "The narrative is already written. Your deaths have already been authorized. This is just cleanup." Mitchell's weapon never wavered. "We're federal agents. You can't just execute us." "Can't I?" Blackwell gestured to the screens. "According to every official database, you're operating outside your jurisdiction. Agent Torres is flagged as potentially compromised. Agent Park is under investigation for evidence tampering. And Colonel Mitchell, your deployment orders to Silvercrest Falls have been retroactively classified as unauthorized leave. That's a lie, Mitchell said. It's a story. And stories become truth when the right people tell them. Blackwell's expression hardened. You should have taken the plane to Denver, Sarah. Should have disappeared when you had the chance. Instead, you've given me exactly what I needed, justification to end this problem permanently. Sarah's mind raced. They were trapped, surrounded, their evidence corrupted, their credibility destroyed. But they still had one advantage. You're right, Sarah said quietly. I should have run. Should have stayed quiet. Should have been the invisible nurse who didn't ask questions. She pulled out her phone, opened a specific app, pressed a single button. But I stopped being that person the moment I walked through your door 3 years ago. Blackwell's confidence flickered. What did you just do? Activated a dead man's switch. Every piece of evidence I collected, every backup file, every encrypted communication. They've all been sent to a single recipient with instructions to release everything if I don't check in every 6 hours. Who? Someone you can't threaten, can't bribe, can't intimidate. Sarah smiled coldly. My handler, Phantom 6, the person who's been watching this operation since before you knew I existed. Blackwell's face went pale. The conference room doors slammed open. Federal agents poured through. Real ones this time. Not contractors. Not private security. Actual FBI tactical teams with badges and authorization. At the front stood a woman in her 60s. Silver hair. 4 stars on her uniform. General Harrison Westbrook. Except Westbrook was a man's name. Sarah had heard his voice on the phone. The woman smiled at Sarah's confusion. Staff Sergeant Martinez, I believe we should have a conversation about assumptions and deception. Who are you? Sarah demanded. Admiral Catherine Westbrook, Naval Intelligence, and the person who's been running Phantom Protocol since its inception. She turned to Blackwell. Jonathan Blackwell, you're under arrest for crimes against the United States of America. The list is extensive. I'll spare you the details for now. Blackwell lunged for something under the table. Mitchell fired. A single shot, center mass. Blackwell went down hard. The conference room erupted into chaos. Blackwell's suited bodyguards reached for weapons. Federal agents responded with overwhelming force. Sarah dove behind the conference table, pulling Park with her. Torres and Mitchell returned fire with controlled precision. It was over in seconds. 5 of Blackwell's people dead. 1 wounded and surrendering. Blackwell himself clutching his chest, blood spreading across his expensive shirt. Admiral Westbrook walked calmly to where he'd fallen, looked down at him with clinical detachment. You were always expendable, Jonathan. The moment you started believing you were actually in charge, you became a liability. She gestured to the medical team waiting in the hallway. Save him. He's going to stand trial. I want the world to see exactly what happens when someone tries to run black site operations on American soil. Sarah stood slowly, rifle still raised. You used us. All of us. Blackwell. Me. Everyone. I used everyone to expose a network that's been operating for 15 years, Westbrook corrected, including myself. Do you think I wanted to spend 7 years orchestrating this? Watching patients die? Allowing experimentation to continue? I did what was necessary to identify every person involved, every politician who looked the other way, every Pentagon official who funneled money, every hospital administrator who knew and said nothing. 26 people died. 26 people who were already terminal, already selected. I didn't choose them. Blackwell did. I simply documented their murders and ensured they wouldn't be forgotten. Westbrook's expression hardened. You want justice, Sergeant? Real justice? That requires sacrifice. It requires patience. And it requires people willing to do difficult things for the greater good. Sarah's hands shook with rage. That's not justice. That's manipulation. It's both. Westbrook gestured to the federal agent securing the scene. In the next 6 hours, 47 arrests will be made across 18 states. Senators, generals, corporate executives, every person who participated in or enabled this program. All because you refused to stay quiet. All because you documented everything. All because you became exactly what I needed you to be. I was never a weapon for you to point, Sarah said. No, you were a mirror. Someone who reflected back exactly how broken the system had become, and now the whole world gets to see it. Westbrook pulled out her phone, showed Sarah the screen. News headlines scrolling past. Breaking news alerts. Congressional emergency sessions being called. Federal investigation exposes illegal human experimentation network. Pentagon officials arrested in black site scandal. Whistleblowers' evidence triggers largest federal corruption case in decades. Sarah's face was on every screen, not as a terrorist, as a hero. I rewrote the narrative, Westbrook explained. The evidence that was corrupted was actually being cleaned and authenticated by our forensic teams. The terrorist designation was temporary misdirection to flesh out everyone involved. And your live stream? It's currently being watched by 17 million people and climbing. Sarah looked at Park's laptop. The feed was still running, still broadcasting, showing Admiral Westbrook, the arrested conspirators, Blackwell bleeding on the floor. Everything. You planned this exact confrontation, Sarah whispered. I planned for multiple possibilities. This was simply the most dramatic. Westbrook smiled. You performed beautifully. So did Colonel Mitchell and Agents Torres and Park. Everyone played their parts perfectly. Mitchell lowered his weapon slowly. We were all pawns. You were all essential pieces in the most complex investigation in modern military history. Westbrook gestured to the doorway. Now comes the hard part. Testimony, hearings, congressional investigations, media interviews. You're going to spend the next year reliving everything you've experienced. Are you prepared for that? Sarah thought about 3 years of silence. 3 years of watching and documenting and knowing she was alone. She wasn't alone anymore. Yes, she said. I'm prepared. Westbrook nodded approvingly. Good. Because there's one more thing you need to know. She pulled out a tablet, showed Sarah a file. Official military document. Dated 7 years ago. Classified. Phantom Protocol. Primary asset. Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez, secondary asset. Colonel Ryan Mitchell. Tertiary assets, Special Agent Victoria Torres, Special Agent James Park. Mission objective, expose and dismantle illegal human experimentation network operating under federal cover. Sarah stared at the document, at the names, at the dates that showed this had been planned for 7 years. We were all recruited, she breathed, from the beginning. You were all selected for specific skills and psychological profiles that made you perfect for this mission. Westbrook closed the tablet. Mitchell's sense of duty, Torres's investigative tenacity, Park's technical expertise, and you, Sarah, your inability to ignore injustice even when silence would be safer. That's not recruitment, that's programming. It's preparation for a mission that required years of groundwork and people willing to sacrifice everything for a cause they didn't know they were serving. Westbrook's expression softened slightly. I know what I've asked of you, all of you, and I know it seems cruel, manipulative, unforgivable. It is unforgivable, Sarah said. Perhaps, but it's also complete. As of tonight, the largest illegal human experimentation network in American history has been exposed. Hundreds of victims will receive justice. Thousands of potential future victims will be protected. And the people responsible will spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. She paused, meeting Sarah's eyes directly. Was it worth it? Sarah looked around the conference room. At Mitchell, who'd protected her without knowing he'd been assigned to. At Torres and Park, who'd risked their careers for evidence they didn't know was part of a larger operation. At Blackwell, who'd believed he was untouchable until the moment he wasn't. 26 patients had died. But how many more would have died if this network had continued operating? How many more victims would have suffered in silence? How many more years would this corruption have festered? Ask me in a year, Sarah said finally. After the trials, after the testimony, after I've had time to process being used as a weapon I didn't know I was carrying. Westbrook smiled. Fair enough. In the meantime, you have choices to make. You can return to civilian life, accept a medical discharge, disappear again if you want. Or you can accept the commission you were actually recruited for 7 years ago. Westbrook pulled out a folder. Official military paperwork, rank insignia, assignment orders. Captain Sarah Martinez, Naval Intelligence, reporting directly to me. Sarah took the folder with numb fingers. Inside was everything that would transform her from a ghost operative back into an official military officer. What would the assignment be? Hunting the people who weren't in this room tonight. The ones who escaped. The networks we haven't fully exposed yet. Westbrook's expression hardened. This isn't over, Captain. This was just the first operation. There are others, deeper, more dangerous, and they all require someone who knows how to operate in the shadows. Sarah looked at Mitchell. Did you know? When you saw me at the airport, did you know what I was? No, I knew you'd made a distress signal. I knew military protocol required me to respond. The rest? He shook his head. I learned it the same time you did. Would you have still helped if you'd known it was a setup? Mitchell considered the question seriously. I helped because a fellow soldier needed backup. The operation behind it doesn't change that fundamental fact. You were in danger. I responded. Everything else is just context. Torres stepped forward. For what it's worth, Park and I weren't read into the larger operation until 6 hours ago. We were investigating hospital corruption. We thought it was a routine fraud case until you walked into our office. But you would have helped anyway, Sarah said. Yeah, we would have. Torres managed a tired smile. That's probably why we were selected. Because we're the kind of people who can't walk away from injustice, even when it's smarter to let someone else handle it. Sarah looked down at the folder in her hands, at the rank that would make her an officer, at the assignment that would send her back into the shadows to fight battles most people would never know existed. She thought about the nurse who'd walked into Harborview Regional 3 years ago. Quiet, invisible, determined to blend in and disappear. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who'd faced down corruption and won. Someone who'd refused to stay silent, even when silence meant survival. Someone who'd accidentally become a catalyst for the largest federal investigation in decades. Someone who had choices. Sarah opened her mouth to respond. That's when the hospital's power died. Complete blackout. Emergency lighting failed to activate. Darkness dropped like a physical weight. And in that darkness, Sarah heard footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving with military precision toward the conference room, Admiral Westbrook's voice cut through the black. Defensive positions. We have hostile contact. Muzzle flashes erupted from the hallway. Gunfire answered from inside the conference room. Sarah dropped flat, rifle coming up instinctively. She fired toward the hallway entrance. Controlled bursts, 3-round patterns. Someone screamed. More footsteps. Closer. Faster. They're flanking through the medical observation rooms, Park shouted. Glass shattered. Sarah rolled left as bullets chewed through the conference table where she'd been crouching. Emergency power finally kicked in. Red lights bathed everything in crimson. Sarah saw them now. Tactical team. 8 operators, professional, coordinated. Not contractors this time. Military. American military insignia on their gear. Cease fire, Westbrook commanded. Identify yourselves. The lead operator stepped forward, weapon still raised. Admiral Westbrook, you're relieved of command. By order of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, this operation is being shut down. On what authority? Section 7 Emergency Protocols. This investigation has been deemed a threat to national security. All evidence is being confiscated. All witnesses are being detained for debriefing. Sarah's blood went cold. Section 7. She knew that designation from her classified training. It meant black bag operations, indefinite detention, people who disappeared into military custody and never came back. You can't do this, Westbrook said. This investigation has been authorized by you, which is why you're being relieved. The operator's tone carried no emotion. Stand down, Admiral. This is over. Mitchell raised his weapon. Like hell it is. Colonel Mitchell, don't make this worse. We have authorization to use lethal force if necessary. Then you better use it, Mitchell said flatly, because I'm not letting you blackbag these people. The tactical team raised their weapons in unison. Sarah's finger tightened on her trigger. This was it, the final confrontation, not against Blackwell, not against corruption, against the very system they'd been fighting to protect. Wait, a voice from the hallway, female, commanding. Everyone froze. A woman in civilian clothes stepped through the tactical team. 50-something. Unremarkable appearance, the kind of person who'd disappear in any crowd, except her eyes carried the weight of someone used to absolute authority. I'm Director Margaret Keller, Defense Intelligence Agency, and this operation is not being shut down. The tactical team leader turned. Ma'am, our orders are superseded by mine. As of 18 minutes ago, the Joint Chiefs authorized continuation of this investigation under DYA oversight. Admiral Westbrook retains operational command. These witnesses remain under federal protection. She pulled out a tablet, showed it to the operator. Verification codes are current. Confirm them. The operator checked his own device. His expression changed. Confirmed. Stand down. The tactical team lowered their weapons, filed out of the conference room without another word. Sarah released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Director Keller turned to Westbrook. That was closer than I'd like, Admiral. Agreed. How did you know they'd try to shut us down? Because someone very powerful just realized how much evidence we've compiled, and they're desperate to contain it. Keller looked at Sarah. Captain Martinez, I need you to understand something. What you've exposed tonight is bigger than a hospital, bigger than a single network. You've uncovered a systematic pattern of illegal human experimentation that reaches into the highest levels of military and civilian government. How high? High enough that elements within the Pentagon just tried to terminate this investigation with lethal force. Keller's expression was grim. We have the evidence. We have the arrests. But we don't have all the conspirators. Some of them are still in positions of power, still capable of striking back. Which means what for us? Torres asked. Which means protective custody. New identities if necessary. Constant security until the trials are complete and everyone involved is behind bars. Keller paused. It also means you're all targets. Anyone who participated in or benefited from this network will want you silenced. The next attempt on your lives won't be as clumsy as tonight. Sarah looked at the folder still clutched in her hand. The commission, the assignment, the choice to keep fighting. How long? She asked. How long until we're safe? Honestly, you may never be completely safe again. That's the cost of whistleblowing at this level. You become a permanent threat to powerful people who have long memories. The room fell silent. Sarah thought about the nurse she'd been, the invisible woman who just wanted to help people heal. That life was gone, burned away by 3 years of documentation and one night of violence. In its place was something harder, sharper, forged in corruption and tempered by betrayal. Someone who couldn't unknow what she'd learned, couldn't unsee what she'd witnessed, couldn't walk away from a fight that had consumed everything she'd once been. Then I guess we'd better finish what we started, Sarah said. She opened the folder. Signed the acceptance paperwork. Became Captain Martinez officially. Westbrook smiled. Welcome back to active duty, Captain. What's my first assignment? Survive the next 48 hours while we secure the witnesses and evidence. Then we start hunting everyone who wasn't arrested tonight. Sarah looked at Mitchell, Torres, and Park. You three don't have to stay. You can take protective custody. Disappear. Let someone else finish this. Mitchell laughed. After everything we just went through, not a chance. We started this together. We're finishing it together. Torres nodded. Besides, I've got 3 years of investigative work invested in this case. I want to see every single person involved in handcuffs. Park closed his laptop. The evidence upload was successful. 63 servers across 17 countries all have complete documentation. Even if they kill us, the truth survives. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. Not quite hope, not quite certainty, but something close to both. They'd survived. They'd exposed the corruption. They'd won. Except winning looked a lot like standing in a blood-stained conference room surrounded by people who wanted them dead, holding military paperwork that turned them into permanent targets and knowing the real fight was just beginning. Director Keller's phone buzzed. She checked it, her expression darkening. We have a problem, she said quietly. What kind of problem? Westbrook asked. Jonathan Blackwell just flatlined. Medical team tried to revive him, but the damage was too severe. Sarah looked at where Blackwell had been lying. The medical team had taken him away minutes ago. He's dead? Yes, which means he can't testify. Can't provide evidence against his co-conspirators. Can't name the people higher up the chain. Keller's jaw tightened. Someone just lost our primary witness. You think Mitchell's shot killed him? Torres asked. I I think the timing is convenient. Very convenient. Keller looked at the medical readouts on her tablet. Blackwell's injuries were serious but survivable. Then suddenly his heart stops during routine stabilization. The medical examiner will investigate, but I'm willing to bet we find evidence of deliberate termination. Someone in the hospital killed him, Sarah said. Someone who knew he was about to talk. Someone who's still here, still free, still dangerous. Westbrook gestured to the federal agents securing the scene. Lock down this hospital, nobody in or out. Every staff member gets interviewed, every patient gets verified. I want to know everyone who had access to Blackwell's treatment. Sarah's phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Almost. Then she saw who the message was from. Phantom 6. They took our primary witness. Adapt, improvise. The secondary target is more important anyway. She showed the message to Westbrook. Phantom 6, Westbrook breathed. I thought he was dead. KIA in Syria 3 years ago. Apparently not, Sarah said. Who is he really? Someone I trusted completely. Someone who helped design Phantom Protocol. Someone who disappeared before we could bring him back for debriefing. Westbrook's expression was troubled. If he's still active, still operating independently, we have a much bigger problem than I thought. What kind of problem? The kind where even I don't know whose side he's on anymore. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Phantom 6. Check Blackwell's office, third drawer, left side desk. Password is PHOENIX17. You'll understand everything. Sarah looked at Westbrook. I need to check Blackwell's office. Absolutely not. We don't take orders from the person who's been right about everything so far, Sarah interrupted. From the handler who kept me alive for 3 years? From the operative who just told us there's a secondary target more important than Blackwell? Westbrook hesitated. Director Keller made the decision. Take Mitchell and Torres. Park stays here with me. You have 15 minutes. They moved through the hospital's 12th floor toward Blackwell's executive suite. Federal agents had already secured it, but they stepped aside when they saw Westbrook's authorization. The office was exactly what Sarah expected. Expensive, tasteful, designed to project power and success. Mitchell went to the desk. Third drawer, left side. It was locked. He shot the lock off, pulled the drawer open. Inside was a tablet, military-grade encryption, biometric scanner waiting for authorization. Sarah picked it up. The screen prompted for a password. She typed PHOENIX17. The tablet unlocked. What she saw made her blood run cold. Files. Dozens of them. Each labeled with a location, a date, a designation. Silvercrest Falls, Harborview Regional, Phase 1. Complete Portland, Mercy General, Phase 2. Active Seattle, St. Vincent's, Phase 3. Pending Sacramento, Riverside Medical, Phase 4. Planning. Sarah scrolled through the files with growing horror. This wasn't one hospital. This wasn't one operation. This was a network, a massive coordinated network spanning 12 cities, 16 hospitals, hundreds of staff members, thousands of potential victims. It's not over, she whispered. Blackwell was just one site, one operation. This is everywhere. Torres looked over her shoulder at the tablet. We need to get this to Keller immediately. They ran back to the conference room. Sarah thrust the tablet at Keller. It's not just Harborview Regional. It's a nationwide network, all using the same protocols, all funded through the same ghost appropriations, all operating under federal cover. Keller's expression went from troubled to devastated as she reviewed the files. This is impossible. An operation of this scale would need... She stopped, looked up. This would need approval from someone at the cabinet level, maybe higher. Westbrook took the tablet. Her hands shook as she read. 26 deaths in Silvercrest Falls. Multiply that across 16 facilities over 15 years. We're looking at thousands of victims, Sarah finished. Thousands of people experimented on. Thousands of families who never knew the truth. The room fell into stunned silence. Then Sarah's phone buzzed one final time. Phantom 6. Now you understand. Blackwell was never the target. He was the doorway. What you found tonight is just the beginning. The real war starts tomorrow. Are you ready, Captain Martinez? Sarah looked at the tablet, at the evidence of crimes that spanned years and states and thousands of lives. She looked at Mitchell, Torres, Park, at Westbrook and Keller, at people who'd risked everything to expose one hospital's corruption and discovered something infinitely worse. She thought about the choice she'd made tonight, the commission she'd signed, the life she'd committed to, and she realized with absolute clarity that nothing would ever be simple again, that every victory would reveal deeper corruption, that every answer would spawn 100 new questions, that the fight she'd thought was ending had barely even started. But she also realized she wasn't alone, wasn't invisible, wasn't powerless. She was exactly where she needed to be. Sarah looked down at her phone, typed a response to Phantom 6. Yes, I'm ready. Let's finish this. She hit send. The screen went black, and somewhere in the darkness beyond the hospital's walls, someone received that message and smiled. Because Captain Sarah Martinez had just declared war on the largest illegal human experimentation network in American history. And the people running that network were about to learn what happened when you tried to erase someone who refused to disappear. The tablet screen remained dark for 3 seconds after Sarah's message sent. Then it blazed back to life with a single line of text that made everyone in the conference room go still. Phantom 6, Portland. Mercy General. Patient intake happening right now. Stop it. Director Keller was already on her phone. Get me the Portland field office. Emergency authorization. I need tactical teams at Mercy General Hospital immediately. Sarah pulled up the files on the tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Portland's operation was flagged as Phase 2, active and ongoing. The intake schedule showed 3 patients admitted in the last 6 hours, all flagged with the same billing code she'd seen at Harborview Regional. Research participants who'd never consented to research. We're too late for those 3, she said quietly. Whatever they're doing has already started. Mitchell leaned over her shoulder, reading the data. Not necessarily. If the procedures follow the same timeline as Silvercrest Falls, they'll need 12 to 18 hours for initial preparation. We can still get them out. If Portland FBI moves fast enough, Torres added, and if whoever's running that facility doesn't get warned we're coming. Westbrook's expression was grim. They'll be warned. The moment Blackwell died, someone sent alerts through the network. Every facility will be on high alert, destroying evidence, moving patients, covering tracks. Then we hit them all simultaneously, Sarah said. Coordinate raids across all 16 cities. Give them no time to react, no time to sanitize. Keller shook her head. That would require federal coordination across multiple jurisdictions. Warrants, evidence packets, legal authorization. We're talking weeks of preparation minimum. We don't have weeks. Sarah pulled up the patient intake schedules. Sacramento's facility has 5 patients scheduled for tomorrow. Seattle has 7 on Friday. If we wait for bureaucracy, dozens more people will be experimented on. If we move without proper authorization, every case gets thrown out on procedural grounds, Keller countered. These people walk free. Is that what you want? Sarah wanted to scream, wanted to grab the tablet and smash it against the wall, wanted to make someone, anyone, understand that legal procedure meant nothing to patients being strapped to tables in basement operating rooms. But she'd been a soldier long enough to know that rage without strategy was just noise. What if we don't need federal coordination? She asked slowly. What if we trigger their own security protocols against them? Westbrook caught on immediately. You want to spook them into lockdown mode. I want to force them to move their evidence, relocate their patients, activate their emergency procedures. Sarah's mind raced through tactical possibilities. Because people make mistakes when they're panicking. They leave trails. They communicate. They expose themselves. Park was already typing on his laptop. I can send alerts through their internal systems, make it look like federal raids are imminent at every facility simultaneously. They'll scramble to protect themselves. And we'll document everything they do, Torres finished. Track the communications, follow the money transfers, identify everyone involved in the network. Mitchell nodded slowly. It's aggressive, risky, could backfire spectacularly. Better than sitting here watching more people die while we wait for warrants, Sarah said. Keller studied her for a long moment. You understand that if this goes wrong, you'll be blamed. Your career will end before it really starts, and everyone who trusted you will go down with you. Sarah thought about 26 bodies in Silvercrest Falls, thought about the 3 patients being prepped in Portland right now, thought about the thousands of victims across 15 years who'd never gotten justice. Then we'd better make sure it doesn't go wrong. Keller's expression shifted, not quite approval, but recognition. Director Keller authorizing emergency protocols. Agent Park, you have clearance to access the network's internal communications. Captain Martinez has tactical command. Make it count. Park's fingers flew across his keyboard. Accessing their encrypted channels now. Looks like they're using military-grade security, but I've got backdoors from the files we recovered. He pulled up a communications dashboard. Dozens of active channels, multiple facilities, real-time message traffic. They're already panicking, Park said. Messages flooding in from Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, all asking for confirmation on Blackwell's status. Let them panic more, Sarah said. Send alerts through their system, official-looking. Make it seem like federal raids are launching in 90 minutes. Park hesitated. That's impersonating federal authority. No, that's using their own communication infrastructure to flesh out conspirators. Sarah met Keller's eyes. Director, do I have authorization? You have exactly 90 minutes, Keller said. After that, we actually do launch coordinated raids, and everything we find better justify what you're about to do. Park sent the alerts. The communications dashboard exploded with activity. Messages streamed past too fast to read individually. Panic, confusion, demands for clarification, requests for evacuation protocols. And then, slowly, coordination. Someone was taking charge, organizing responses, directing the network's reaction. There, Sarah pointed at a specific message thread. That user. They're directing everyone, telling Portland to relocate patients, Seattle to destroy research records, Sacramento to activate sanitization procedures. Park traced the communication signature, routing through multiple VPN layers, sophisticated operational security. But I can backtrack if you give me time. How much time? 20 minutes. Maybe 30. Sarah looked at the clock. They'd burned 15 minutes already. In 45 minutes, real federal raids would launch. They needed to know who was directing this network before then. Do it, she ordered. Trace that signal. Find out who's running this operation. While Park worked, Sarah studied the message traffic. The pattern was revealing. Whoever was in charge had intimate knowledge of federal raid procedures. They knew exactly how much time each facility would need to sanitize, knew which evidence could be destroyed quickly and which needed to be physically relocated. This wasn't someone guessing. This was someone with insider knowledge, military or federal law enforcement background, maybe both. Westbrook was reading the same messages, coming to the same conclusions. Whoever this is, they've done this before, managed crises, coordinated operations under pressure. How many people have that skill set? Sarah asked. At this level, with this kind of network access? Westbrook's expression was troubled. Maybe 200 people across all federal agencies and military branches. Narrow it by who would benefit from keeping this network operational, Mitchell suggested. Who profits from illegal human experimentation? Defense contractors testing new technologies, Torres said. Pharmaceutical companies bypassing FDA approval. Military research programs exploring prohibited procedures. Or intelligence agencies running black site interrogation research, Sarah added quietly. Testing methods that can't be used on foreign soil anymore. The room went silent. Keller's phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going pale. Understood. Keep me posted. She hung up, turning to the group. Portland FBI just entered Mercy General. The 3 patients flagged for procedures are gone. So is all the specialized equipment. And the staff on duty tonight have no record of any unusual admissions. They sanitized in under 30 minutes, Sarah said. That's professional. Rehearsed. Seattle's reporting the same thing, Keller continued. By the time agents arrived, the facility looked like a normal hospital. No evidence of anything illegal. Because they're good at disappearing, Westbrook said. 15 years of practice. Park looked up from his laptop, triumph flickering in his eyes. Got it. The signal originated from Washington, D.C., routing through the Pentagon's internal network. Everyone turned to stare at him. "You're saying someone inside the Pentagon is directing this network?" Mitchell asked carefully. "I'm saying the communication signature traces back to a terminal inside the Pentagon. Specifically," Park checked his data again, "the Office of the Secretary of Defense." The implications hit like a physical blow. Someone at the highest levels of the Defense Department was running illegal human experimentation across 16 American cities. Westbrook grabbed Park's laptop, verified the trace herself. Her hands shook slightly. "This can't be right. The Secretary's office has oversight from people who answer to the Secretary," Sarah interrupted. "Who gets access to that terminal?" Park pulled up security logs. In the last 6 hours, 4 people logged in, 2 administrative assistants, 1 deputy undersecretary, and he stopped, went pale. "Who?" Keller demanded. "Deputy Secretary of Defense Marcus Halloway." Sarah's blood ran cold. Halloway. She knew that name. Everyone in military intelligence knew that name. Marcus Halloway had been instrumental in reforming military medical protocols after the Abu Ghraib scandal. He'd testified before Congress about the need for ethical oversight in combat medicine. He'd written papers on the moral responsibilities of military health care. He was supposed to be one of the good ones. "We need to verify this before we make accusations," Westbrook said carefully. "Halloway has 4-star generals vouching for him, congressional allies, presidential appointments in his background. Which makes him perfect for running an illegal network," Sarah said. "Nobody suspects the reformer. Nobody questions the ethics expert." Her phone buzzed. "Phantom 6. "You found him. Good. Now comes the hard part. Halloway has contingencies, fail-safes, people who'll kill to protect him. You need leverage before you move." Sarah typed back. "What kind of leverage?" "Phantom 6. The kind that makes him choose exposure over extinction. Check the tablet. File marked insurance. Password is Damascus." Sarah opened the file. Inside were documents that made everything else look insignificant. Financial records showing $400 million in ghost appropriations over 15 years. Patient lists with names, real names, of everyone who'd been experimented on. And photographs. Dozens of photographs showing Deputy Secretary Halloway personally overseeing procedures at 3 different facilities. "This is enough to bury him," Torres breathed, looking over Sarah's shoulder. "This is enough to trigger a constitutional crisis," Keller corrected. "A sitting Deputy Secretary of Defense running human experimentation programs? We're talking impeachment hearings, congressional investigations, complete restructuring of Defense Department oversight." "Good," Sarah said flatly. "Let it burn. Let everyone see exactly what's been happening while they looked the other way." Westbrook put a hand on her shoulder. "Captain, I understand your anger, but you need to think strategically. If we go public with this now, tonight, Halloway will activate his contingencies. Evidence will disappear. Witnesses will recant. And he'll claim this is all fabricated by a rogue operative with a grudge. So what do you suggest? We sit on evidence of mass murder? I suggest we use it as leverage to force a controlled collapse instead of chaotic exposure." Westbrook pulled up secure messaging on her phone. "I can get this to the Joint Chiefs directly. Bypass Halloway's people. Force him to surrender or be arrested by his own military." Sarah wanted to argue. Wanted to demand immediate public exposure. Wanted Halloway's face on every screen with his crimes laid bare for the world to see. But Westbrook was right. Controlled collapse meant fewer casualties, fewer chances for evidence to vanish, fewer opportunities for conspirators to escape. "How long?" Sarah asked. 12 hours. By sunrise, either Halloway's in federal custody or we release everything publicly and deal with the fallout." Sarah looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. Sunrise at 6:23 a.m., less than 3 hours. "Make the call," she said. Westbrook typed rapidly, sending encrypted messages to people Sarah could only guess at. Joint Chiefs, congressional oversight, maybe even the White House. The kind of messages that ended careers and toppled empires. While they waited, Sarah studied the insurance file more carefully. The patient lists were comprehensive. Names, dates, procedures, outcomes. 15 years of systematic abuse documented in clinical detail. One name caught her eye. Lieutenant Colonel David Martinez, admitted to Harborview Regional 8 years ago for routine knee surgery following a training injury, flagged for research protocols, procedure performed, outcome, death from complications. Her father. Sarah's hands went numb. The tablet nearly slipped from her grip. Captain? Mitchell's voice seemed to come from very far away. What's wrong? She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at her father's name on a list of experimental subjects. Her father had died 8 years ago. Routine surgery. Unexpected complications. The military had held a funeral with full honors. She'd been 21 years old, still in training, still believing the world made sense. She'd never questioned it, never suspected, never imagined that the surgery that killed him had been anything other than tragic bad luck. They murdered my father, she whispered. Westbrook took the tablet, read the entry, her expression shifting to something between pity and rage. I'm sorry, Captain. I didn't know. Neither did I. Sarah's voice was hollow. He went in for knee surgery, came out in a casket, and I never questioned why because I trusted the system, trusted that military doctors wouldn't experiment on their own people. Is that why you were recruited? Torres asked quietly. Because of what happened to your father. Sarah looked at Westbrook. Is it? Westbrook met her eyes without flinching. Yes. We identified you as a potential asset 6 months after your father's death. You had the skills we needed, the psychology, and the personal investment to see this through even when it became impossible. You used my father's murder to manipulate me into this operation. I used your desire for answers to channel your investigation toward the truth. Westbrook's tone carried no apology. Your father deserved justice. So did 25 other people in Silvercrest Falls. So do thousands more across this network. I gave you the tools to get that justice. What you did with them was always your choice. Sarah wanted to rage, wanted to put her fist through the wall, wanted to make someone, anyone, hurt the way she was hurting right now. But the rage crystallized into something colder, sharper, purpose. Her father hadn't died from complications. He'd been murdered as part of an illegal experiment. And the man responsible was sitting in the Pentagon right now, probably planning his next move. When you contact Holloway, Sarah said, her voice carrying steel, I want to be there. I want to look him in the eye when he realizes he's caught. Westbrook considered this. It's irregular. You're personally connected to one of the victims, which makes me the perfect person to confront him. Sarah's hand steadied. He thinks he's untouchable, thinks his position protects him. I want him to see exactly who brought him down. Keller's phone buzzed. She checked it, nodded. Joint Chiefs are convening emergency session in 90 minutes. They want Holloway present to answer questions about irregular appropriations in the medical research budget. Will he come? Mitchell asked. He won't have a choice. The summons carries presidential authority. Keller looked at Sarah. You want to confront him? You do it there. In front of witnesses, on record, where he can't make you disappear. Sarah nodded. When do we leave? Now. We've got a military transport waiting at Silvercrest Regional Airport. Wheels up in 30 minutes. They move fast. The hospital's lockdown lifted just enough to let them exit under armed escort. 3 armored SUVs waited outside. Federal agents, military police, the kind of security detail that said someone very important was taking this very seriously. The drive to the airport took 12 minutes through pre-dawn streets. Sarah watched the city pass by outside darkened windows. Somewhere in those buildings, people were waking up to normal lives, going to work, drinking coffee, completely unaware that a massive conspiracy was about to explode into public consciousness. The military transport was a C-130, utilitarian, built for cargo and troops, not comfort. Sarah had flown in dozens of them during her deployment years. It felt like coming home to something she'd tried to forget. They strapped into jump seats. The engines roared to life. The aircraft taxied and lifted into darkness. Washington, D.C. was 3 hours away. Sarah used the time to review everything in the insurance file. Every patient, every procedure, every documented crime. She committed names to memory, faces, stories. These people deserved to be remembered, deserved to have their suffering mean something. Her father deserved justice. Torres sat down next to her. You don't have to do this. Confronting Holloway, Nobody would blame you for staying back. I would blame me, Sarah said. My whole life I've been told to stay quiet. Play my role, don't make waves, and every time I stayed silent, someone else paid the price. That's not your fault, isn't it? I knew something was wrong at Harborview Regional for 3 years. 3 years I documented evidence and waited for the right moment to act. How many people died while I waited? You were following orders, building a case. I was being a good soldier instead of a good person. Sarah closed the tablet. That ends now, starting with looking Holloway in the eye and making sure he knows exactly who ended his career. The flight landed at Joint Base Andrews at 6:45 a.m. Sunrise painted the sky in shades of orange and red. Beautiful, completely at odds with what was about to happen. 2 more SUVs waited on the tarmac, military police this time. They drove straight to the Pentagon, entering through security checkpoints that Sarah had never seen before, hallways she'd never walked, elevators requiring biometric authorization, security so tight it felt like descending into a vault. They emerged into a conference room that could seat 50 people. Currently it held 12. 4-star generals, admirals, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, people whose decisions shaped global military policy. And at the center of the table, Deputy Secretary of Defense Marcus Holloway. He looked exactly like his official photographs. Mid-50s, distinguished gray hair, expensive suit, the kind of calm confidence that came from 30 years navigating military bureaucracy. His eyes flicked to Sarah when she entered. Recognition flickered, not of her specifically, but of what she represented. Threat. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Raymond Foster, gestured to empty chairs. Admiral Westbrook, Director Keller, please be seated. And you must be Captain Martinez. Sarah saluted. Yes, sir. At ease, Captain. We've reviewed the preliminary evidence you've compiled. It's disturbing. Disturbing is a polite word for mass murder, sir, Sarah said. Holloway's expression didn't change. General Foster, I assume there's a reason I was summoned to an emergency session at dawn to listen to accusations from a junior officer with a questionable service record? Sarah's hands clenched, but she kept her voice level. My service record is sealed under Phantom Protocol, which you're familiar with since you authorized the budget for it 7 years ago. Holloway's eyes narrowed slightly. I authorize budgets for dozens of classified programs. That doesn't mean I'm familiar with operational details. Then let me refresh your memory. Sarah pulled out the tablet, set it on the conference table. 16 hospitals, 12 cities, 15 years, $400 million in ghost appropriations, and approximately 4,000 patients who were experimented on without consent. She pulled up the financial records, displayed them on the room's main screen. Every transaction, every hospital, every dollar traced back to appropriations Holloway had personally approved. The generals studied the data in silence. Holloway remained calm. These records are clearly fabricated. Any competent forensic accountant will tell you. That the encryption keys match Pentagon security protocols, Keller interrupted. That the approval signatures are verified authentic. And that the financial trail leads directly to accounts you control. Circumstantial at best. How about photographs? Sarah pulled up the images from the insurance file. Holloway in surgical scrubs. Holloway observing procedures. Holloway signing documents authorizing experiments. Holloway's composure cracked, just slightly. Where did you get those? From someone who knew you'd need insurance, Sarah said. Someone who documented everything you did, every crime, every victim. Phantom 6, Holloway breathed. Among others. Sarah pulled up the patient list, let it scroll across the screen, names and names and names. 4,000 people, maybe more, all subjects in your illegal research program. She stopped the scroll on a specific name. Lieutenant Colonel David Martinez, my father. You killed him 8 years ago during a procedure that was supposed to fix his knee. Holloway's face went pale. General Foster leaned forward. Marcus, I'm going to give you one opportunity to explain this, and I suggest you choose your words very carefully. Holloway was silent for a long moment. Sarah could see him calculating, weighing options, deciding how much truth to reveal. The program was authorized, he said finally. Classified. Need to know only. but authorized by people far above my pay grade. Authorized by whom? Foster demanded. I can't say. National security restrictions. You don't get to hide behind classification when we're talking about crimes against American citizens, Keller said coldly. I'm not hiding. I'm following protocol. The program exists to test medical technologies that can't be ethically tested through normal channels. Technologies that save lives in combat, that give our soldiers advantages in the field. At the cost of murdering your own people, Sarah said. At the cost of calculated sacrifices for the greater good. Holloway met her eyes directly. Your father was terminal, Captain. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live at best. We offered him a chance to contribute to research that would save thousands of soldiers' lives. Sarah's world tilted. That's a lie. He had a knee injury. That's all. That's what we told you. What we told everyone. Holloway's voice was almost gentle. But your father knew the truth. He volunteered for the experimental procedure, signed consent forms, understood the risks. Prove it. Holloway pulled out his own tablet, brought up documents. Sarah recognized her father's signature on consent forms dated 8 years ago. I understand this procedure is experimental. I understand the risks, including potential death. I consent to participate in this research to advance military medical capabilities. Signed, Lieutenant Colonel David Martinez. Sarah felt like she was drowning. No, he wouldn't have. He would have told me. He was protecting you, Holloway said, giving you the comfort of believing his death was an accident rather than a choice. That's convenient, Torres interjected. Consent forms that suddenly appear when you need them. I have medical records supporting the diagnosis, Holloway countered. Oncology reports, imaging scans. Your father was dying, Captain Martinez. He chose to die for a purpose. Sarah's hands shook. She wanted to believe Holloway was lying, wanted to maintain her rage, her certainty. But the documents looked real. The signature looked real. What if her father had volunteered? Even if that's true, Westbrook said, it doesn't excuse 4,000 other patients. Not everyone was terminal. Not everyone consented. No, Holloway admitted. But the program evolved, expanded, sometimes beyond what I could control. You were the Deputy Secretary of Defense, General Foster said, his voice hard. You're telling us you couldn't control a program you were running? I'm telling you the program had stakeholders beyond the Defense Department, pharmaceutical companies, medical device manufacturers, intelligence agencies. Everyone wanted access to the research. Everyone pushed for more subjects, more procedures, more data. So you're claiming you were pressured into running illegal human experiments? Keller's tone dripped with disbelief. I'm claiming the program served national interests that superseded individual rights. Holloway's mask of calm was fully restored now. We live in a world where enemies use technologies against us that we can't defend against through conventional means. This research gave us capabilities that have saved American lives in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, classified operations I can't detail, but that you all know exist. He looked around the table. So before you judge me, ask yourselves, how many soldiers came home alive because of the technologies we developed? How many terrorist attacks were prevented? How many Americans are breathing today because we were willing to make hard choices? Silence filled the conference room. Sarah watched the generals' faces, saw them calculating, weighing American lives saved against American lives sacrificed, saw them considering that maybe Holloway had a point. No, she said quietly. Every eye turned to her. Captain, General Foster prompted. No, Sarah repeated, louder now. He doesn't get to hide behind national security, doesn't get to claim the ends justify the means. Because the moment we start experimenting on our own citizens without consent, we become exactly what we're fighting against. She stood, facing the generals directly. My father might have volunteered. I'll never know for sure. But the other names on that list? They didn't volunteer. They trusted military doctors to heal them, trusted that American hospitals wouldn't torture them, and that trust was violated by people who thought they were above the law. Sarah pulled out the tablet, set it in front of General Foster. 4,000 names, 4,000 families. They all deserve the truth. Not the comfortable lie that their loved ones died serving national interests. The truth that they were murdered by people who should have protected them. She turned to Holloway. You want to claim you were following orders? Fine. Give us the names. Every stakeholder, every pharmaceutical company, every intelligence official, every person who knew about this program and allowed it to continue. Holloway smiled coldly. And if I refuse? Then we release everything publicly, Keller said. Every document, every photograph, every piece of evidence. And let the American people decide what they think about a Deputy Secretary of Defense who runs torture programs on civilian soil. You wouldn't dare. The classified material alone would trigger a national security crisis. Try us, Westbrook said. Holloway studied them carefully. Sarah could see him calculating again, trying to find an angle, a way out. He wouldn't find one. General Foster, Holloway said finally, I invoke executive privilege. This program was authorized by people I can't name for reasons I can't discuss. Any further disclosure requires presidential authorization. Then we'll get presidential authorization, Foster said coldly. But in the meantime, you're relieved of duty pending investigation. Security will escort you to a holding facility while we determine whether criminal charges are warranted. Military police entered the conference room. Holloway stood calmly, buttoning his suit jacket. This isn't over. The people who authorized this program won't let it collapse. They'll protect their interests. Let them try, Sarah said. Holloway was escorted out. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt anticlimactic after everything that had led to this moment. General Foster turned to Sarah. Captain Martinez, you've done your country a service, but you've also opened a wound that's going to take years to heal. Some wounds need to be opened, sir, so they can finally be treated properly. Foster nodded slowly. Fair point. What do you need from us? Protection for the witnesses, real protection, not the kind that disappears when it's inconvenient. Justice for the victims. Real justice, with trials and accountability, and transparency. The American people deserve to know what was done in their name. That's asking a lot. It's asking for the bare minimum of accountability. Foster glanced at the other generals. Some nodded. Some looked troubled, but none disagreed. We'll convene a formal investigation, Foster said. Congressional oversight. Independent prosecutors. Full disclosure within the limits of national security. You have my word. It wasn't enough. Sarah knew that. Knew that promises made in crisis often evaporated when the pressure decreased. But it was more than she'd had yesterday. Thank you, sir. The meeting adjourned. Sarah walked out of the Pentagon into morning sunlight feeling both victorious and empty. They'd caught Holloway, exposed the network, started the process of justice. But her father was still dead. 4,000 victims were still gone. And somewhere in the bureaucracy, people who'd authorized this program were already planning how to protect themselves. Mitchell fell into step beside her. You did good in there. Did I? Holloway's in custody, but the program probably continues under a different name. The pharmaceutical companies will claim they didn't know. The intelligence agencies will hide behind classification. And in 5 years, someone else will start another illegal research program because we never actually fixed the system. Maybe. Or maybe you started something that can't be stopped. Public awareness, congressional oversight, whistleblower protections. Mitchell paused. Your father would be proud. Sarah wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that her father's sacrifice, voluntary or not, had meant something. Her phone buzzed. Phantom 6. Holloway's in custody. Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Sarah stared at the message. Phase 2. Because of course there was a Phase 2. There was always another layer, another conspiracy, another fight. She typed back. Who are you? Really? The response came after a long pause. Phantom 6. Someone who lost everything to this program. Someone who's been fighting it from the inside for 15 years. Someone who needed a catalyst to burn it all down. You were that catalyst, Sarah, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth until you were ready to handle it. Ready to handle what? Phantom 6. That your father didn't die in that experimental procedure. He survived it, and he's been working with me ever since. Sarah's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the Pentagon steps. Mitchell caught her as her legs gave out. Sarah? What's wrong? She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at the message on the cracked screen. Her father was alive. Everything she'd believed for 8 years was a lie. And somewhere in the shadows, a man she'd thought was dead was waiting to explain why he'd let her think he was gone. Mitchell caught Sarah before she hit the concrete steps. His hands were steady even as she trembled violently, her entire world fracturing around a single impossible truth. Her father was alive. 8 years of grief. 8 years of carrying his memory like a stone in her chest. 8 years of believing she'd lost the one person who'd understood her completely. All of it built on a lie. "Sarah," Mitchell's voice was urgent. "Talk to me. What did that message say?" She couldn't form words, could only point at the phone screen with shaking fingers. Mitchell read it. His expression shifted from confusion to shock to something harder. Jesus Christ! Torres and Park came running. Westbrook and Keller weren't far behind. "What happened?" Torres demanded. Mitchell showed them the message, the words that had just detonated Sarah's entire understanding of her life. Westbrook read it twice, then pulled out her own phone, typing frantically. "If this is true, if Lieutenant Colonel Martinez survived that procedure and has been operational for 8 years, then we've been running 2 separate investigations into the same network without knowing it. Or Phantom 6 is manipulating her," Keller said carefully, "using emotional leverage to control her response. We need verification before—" Sarah's phone buzzed again. Phantom 6. Verification. Andrews Air Force Base, Hangar 7, access code Delta Romeo 77, Charlie. "I'm waiting." Sarah grabbed her phone, standing on legs that barely held her weight. "I'm going." "The hell you are," Westbrook said. "This could be a trap. An ambush, someone using your emotions against you." "Then it's a trap I'm walking into with my eyes open." Sarah's voice was steel wrapped around broken glass. "Because if there's even a chance my father is alive, I'm taking it. And if someone's lying to me, using his memory to manipulate me, then I'm going to make them regret it." Mitchell stepped beside her. "You're not going alone." "Neither are we," Torres added. Park nodded agreement. Keller made a sharp gesture. "Fine. But we do this smart. Tactical approach. Backup teams. The second anything feels wrong, we extract." They moved fast. The SUVs were still waiting outside the Pentagon. Military police escort. Full security detail. Andrews Air Force Base was 18 minutes away through morning traffic. Sarah spent those 18 minutes in silence, her mind racing through possibilities. Her father alive meant someone had faked his death, filed false reports, conducted a military funeral with an empty casket, deceived everyone who'd known him. Why? To protect him from the network? To embed him deeper in the investigation? To give him freedom to operate outside official channels? Or to use him as leverage against his daughter when the time came? The SUV passed through Andrews' main gate. Security clearance verified. They drove past rows of aircraft toward the far end of the base, where older hangars sat in relative isolation. Hangar 7 was a relic from the Cold War. Massive, utilitarian, the kind of place where experimental aircraft had once been tested in absolute secrecy. The hangar doors stood open. Darkness inside despite the morning sun. Keller's tactical team moved first. 6 operators in full gear, weapons ready, clearing the space with professional efficiency. "Clear," the team leader called. "One individual present, unarmed, matching description of Lieutenant Colonel David Martinez from service photographs." Sarah's heart stopped. She walked into that hangar like she was walking through a dream. Footsteps echoing on concrete, shadows and light playing tricks with her vision. And at the center of the vast empty space stood a man she'd thought was dead. Older than she remembered, grayer, lines in his face that hadn't been there 8 years ago. But unmistakably him. Her father, Sarah. His voice broke on her name. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stare at the ghost who'd worn her father's face and voice and presence. "You're dead," she whispered. "I went to your funeral. I watched them fold the flag." "I know." He took a step toward her, stopped when she flinched back. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" The word came out strangled. "You let me think you were dead for 8 years. Let me grieve. Let me blame myself for not being there when you needed me. And all you have is sorry?" "I didn't have a choice." Everyone has a choice. Sarah's voice cracked. You chose to disappear, chose to let me suffer, chose to sacrifice me for whatever mission you thought was more important than your own daughter. David Martinez's face crumpled. You're right. I did choose. And it was the hardest decision I've ever made. But Sarah, if you'll let me explain. Explain what? How you've been alive this whole time? How you've been running operations while I thought you were 6 feet under? How you used me as an asset without my knowledge or consent? Yes. His voice was quiet, steady. All of that. If you'll give me the chance. Sarah wanted to walk away. Wanted to reject him the way he'd rejected her by faking his death. Wanted to make him hurt the way she was hurting right now. But she'd spent 8 years with unanswered questions, and now the only person who could answer them stood 10 feet away. Talk, she said flatly. You have 5 minutes. David glanced at the federal agents and military personnel surrounding them. Can we have privacy? No, Keller said firmly. Anything you say to Captain Martinez is on record. That's non-negotiable. David nodded acceptance. He turned his full attention to Sarah. 8 years ago, I was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 6 months at best. Holloway approached me with an offer. Participate in an experimental treatment that might save my life, and in exchange, help him expose the illegal research program from the inside. Holloway recruited you? Sarah's voice was incredulous. The same man running the experiments? He wasn't running them, not then. He was investigating them. David pulled out a file folder. Old paper documents, handwritten notes. Holloway discovered the program 7 years before that, tried to shut it down through official channels, got stonewalled at every level. So he decided to infiltrate it instead, build evidence, identify everyone involved. He handed the folder to Sarah. She read through it with growing disbelief. Holloway's notes detailed his investigation. Patient lists, financial trails, names of people protecting the network, all dated years before Sarah had even started at Harborview Regional. Holloway was investigating his own program? Westbrook asked. It was never his program, David said. He was appointed deputy secretary specifically to oversee it, but the people who appointed him didn't know he planned to destroy it from within. Then why did he confess to running it? Mitchell demanded. Because I told him to. David met their shocked expressions calmly. We needed someone to take the fall publicly while we continued investigating the real architects. Holloway agreed to sacrifice his career if it meant protecting the larger operation. Sarah's head spun. So everything in that conference room was theater? Calculated confession designed to satisfy immediate accountability while giving us time to pursue the deeper conspiracy. David looked at Sarah directly. The people running this network aren't in the Pentagon, Sarah. They're not in the Defense Department at all. They're in the private sector, pharmaceutical executives, medical device manufacturers, billionaires who fund black site research through shell corporations. He pulled out another document, a list of names Sarah didn't recognize but clearly terrified the military officers present. These people have enough money and influence to make problems disappear permanently, David continued. They've killed investigators before, ruined careers, destroyed families. The only way to stop them was to make them believe they'd won, that their program was safe, their profits secure. While we built an airtight case they couldn't escape. For 8 years, Sarah said quietly, you built that case for 8 years while I thought you were dead. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because telling you would have made you a target, would have forced you to lie to everyone you knew, would have destroyed any chance of you living a normal life. David's voice broke slightly. I wanted you safe, Sarah. Away from this. Protected. But so you recruited me into Phantom Protocol anyway? I didn't recruit you. Westbrook did, without my knowledge. When I found out she'd brought you into the operation, I tried to pull you out. But you were already too deep, already investigating Harborview Regional on your own, already documenting evidence. He looked at Westbrook. She kept me from interfering. Said you had a right to choose your own path, that protecting you by keeping you ignorant would just make you vulnerable. Westbrook nodded confirmation. Your father wanted you safe. I wanted you empowered. We disagreed on which mattered more. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. So all of this, my entire investigation, was just me stumbling into a mission you'd already been running? No. David's voice was firm. Your investigation was yours. Your courage was yours. Your refusal to stay silent when silence would have been easier. That was all you, Sarah. I documented the financial crimes, tracked the network's infrastructure, but you did something I could never do. What? You made people care. Made them see the victims as human beings rather than data points. Your testimony in that conference room carried weight mine never could, because you weren't a ghost operative following orders. You were a nurse who'd watched patients suffer and refused to accept it. Sarah wanted to believe him, wanted to think her actions had mattered beyond being another piece in someone else's chess game. But she'd been lied to for 8 years, had her grief weaponized, had her life manipulated by people who claimed to be protecting her. I need proof, she said. Not stories, not explanations. Proof that Holloway was actually investigating the network. Proof that you've been working against it, and not for it. David pulled out a flash drive. Everything I've compiled over 8 years, names, transactions, communications, audio recordings of executives ordering experiments, video evidence of procedures being performed, the complete architecture of how this network operates. He handed it to Keller. Verify it. Check every piece of data against your own evidence. If I'm lying, you'll know within an hour. Keller took the drive, gestured to Park. Get this to our forensic teams immediately. Full verification protocol. Park left at a run. The hangar fell into tense silence. Sarah stared at her father across 10 feet that felt like 10 miles. This man who'd raised her, taught her to stand up for what was right, even when it cost everything, who'd apparently taken his own lesson so seriously he'd faked his death and spent 8 years destroying the people who'd tried to kill him. If the data checks out, she said slowly, what happens next? We finish what we started, David said. The network's public face is destroyed. Holloway's confession will trigger investigations. But the people funding it, the executives and investors who profited from human suffering, they're still free, still dangerous, still capable of starting this all over again somewhere else. So we hunt them. We expose them. Make their crimes so public they can't hide. Force accountability even for people rich enough to buy their way out of anything. David paused. But Sarah, you don't have to be part of that. You've done enough, sacrificed enough. If you want to walk away, I don't. Sarah's voice was steady. But I'm not doing it as someone's asset, not doing it following orders I don't understand. If we're finishing this, we're doing it as partners, full transparency, no more secrets. David smiled, the first genuine emotion she'd seen from him. Deal. Westbrook's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression shifting to satisfaction. Verified. Park's team confirms the data is authentic and corroborates everything we've found independently. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez's evidence fills gaps we didn't even know existed. She turned to David. You've been busy. I've had 8 years and very little else to do. David looked around at the assembled military officers. I assume you want formal debriefing? Extensive debriefing, General Foster said, entering the hangar with 2 more stars on his uniform than before. But first, we have a more immediate problem. He pulled up a tablet showing news broadcasts. Every major network. Breaking news banners. Defense Department whistleblower exposes illegal human experimentation. Deputy Secretary Holloway in federal custody. Thousands of victims in nationwide medical research scandal. The story broke 30 minutes ago, Foster said. Someone leaked everything to the press. Every document, every photograph, complete disclosure. Who? Keller demanded. Foster's expression was grim. According to the metadata, the leak came from Deputy Secretary Holloway's personal devices. He uploaded everything from his holding cell before we could stop him. Sarah understood immediately. He wants public pressure, wants trials that can't be buried, wants everyone involved exposed before the powerful people funding this can make deals and walk away. He also just destroyed any chance of controlled disclosure, Westbrook said tightly. Congressional hearings will be chaos. Trials will be circuses. And every pharmaceutical company with competent lawyers is already preparing to claim they had no knowledge of illegal activities. Good, Sarah said. Let them try to claim ignorance while the whole world watches. Let them explain how they funded research without knowing what the research involved. Let them look the American people in the eye and say they had no idea their profits came from human suffering. Foster studied her. You understand this will get messy. Political, drawn out. Victims will be re-traumatized by public testimony. Families will learn things they never wanted to know. The military's reputation will take damage that might never fully repair. Better than leaving it buried, Sarah said. Better than letting powerful people walk away because we were too afraid of mess to demand accountability. Foster nodded slowly. I agree, which is why I'm assigning you to the prosecution team. Captain Martinez, you'll work directly with the Department of Justice as a special military liaison. Your job is to ensure every victim's story gets heard, every family gets answers, every piece of evidence gets presented in court. What about the private sector funding sources? David asked. We're coordinating with the FBI's white-collar crime division, Keller said. Parallel investigations into every company and individual who profited from this network. It'll take years, but we're committed to seeing it through. She paused, looking between Sarah and David. For what it's worth, this is the largest corruption case in modern American history. It's going to consume years of your lives, destroy your privacy, make you permanent targets for people who want this buried. Are you absolutely certain you want this fight? Sarah thought about 3 years as an invisible nurse, thought about 26 bodies in Silvercrest Falls, thought about her father's empty casket and 8 years of grief, thought about the choice she'd made in that airport terminal when she'd refused to board a plane that would have taken her away from all of this. I'm certain, she said. So am I, David added. Westbrook pulled out military paperwork. Then let's make it official. Lieutenant Colonel David Martinez, you're being reactivated to full-duty status. Captain Sarah Martinez, you're being promoted to major and assigned to the Joint Military-Civilian Task Force investigating this network. She handed them both documents to sign. Sarah stared at the promotion paperwork. Major. A rank that came with authority, responsibility, the power to make sure this investigation actually delivered justice instead of just headlines. She signed without hesitation. Her father signed his own reactivation papers. They stood side by side, father and daughter, both returned from the dead in different ways, both committed to finishing what they'd started. There's one more thing, Foster said. Holloway's public confession implicated several sitting senators and 3 members of the House Armed Services Committee. They're already calling for his execution as a traitor, claiming he acted alone to undermine military readiness. Let them call for whatever they want, Sarah said. Holloway's data will prove they're lying, and when it does, I want them prosecuted with the same severity they're demanding for him. That's going to be politically complicated. I don't care about politics, I care about justice. Foster smiled slightly. You sound like your father. David put a hand on Sarah's shoulder, the first physical contact in 8 years. She didn't pull away. Sir, David said, with respect, my daughter doesn't sound like me. She sounds like herself, and she's been fighting this battle longer than any of us knew. Over the next 6 hours, Sarah gave formal testimony to 3 different oversight committees, told her story over and over, showed her evidence, answered questions that ranged from supportive to hostile. Congressional representatives who'd taken donations from the pharmaceutical companies involved tried to discredit her, called her mentally unstable, questioned her motives, suggested she'd fabricated evidence for personal gain. Sarah answered every attack with documented facts, financial records, patient testimonies, audio recordings that couldn't be denied. By evening, 12 members of Congress had announced they wouldn't seek re-election. 4 had resigned immediately, and 2 were under investigation for obstruction of justice. The network was collapsing, publicly, spectacularly, exactly as it deserved. Sarah emerged from the final hearing exhausted but vindicated. News cameras waited outside, reporters shouting questions, lights and chaos and attention she'd never wanted. Mitchell appeared at her side, creating space with his physical presence. This way, we've got a car waiting. They pushed through the crowd. Sarah kept her head up, her expression calm, refusing to hide or run. A reporter managed to get close enough to shout, Major Martinez, what do you say to people calling you a hero? Sarah stopped. Mitchell tensed but didn't interfere. She looked directly at the camera. I'm not a hero. I'm a nurse who saw patients being harmed and refused to look away. I'm a soldier who believed the military should protect people, not exploit them. I'm a daughter who lost her father to a corrupt system and decided that loss would mean something. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. The real heroes are the victims who survived this network, the families who kept asking questions even when everyone told them to stop, the investigators who spent years building cases that powerful people tried to bury. They're the ones who deserve recognition. What's next for you? Another reporter called. Making sure every person involved in this network faces consequences. Making sure every victim gets justice. Making sure this never happens again. Sarah's voice was steel. And if that takes the rest of my career, then that's what I'll give it. The crowd erupted with more questions, but Mitchell guided her to the waiting car. They drove away from the Capitol building as sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from Torres. Trials start in 3 months. We've got 47 defendants so far and counting. This is going to be one hell of a fight. Another from Park just identified 2 more hospitals in the network. Evidence is solid, they're going down. And one from her father. Proud of you doesn't begin to cover it. Dinner tomorrow? We have 8 years to catch up on. Sarah responded to that one first. Yes, but I picked the restaurant. And you're paying for 8 years of birthday presents you missed. His reply came immediately. Fair. I deserve that. Mitchell glanced at her from the driver's seat. How are you holding up? Ask me in a year, Sarah said. After the trials. After the sentences. After we've actually seen this through to the end. That's not an answer. Sarah looked out at Washington, D.C. passing by outside the window. A city built on power and compromise and secrets. A city that had just learned some secrets couldn't stay buried forever. I spent 3 years feeling invisible, she said quietly. Feeling powerless. Watching people suffer and thinking I couldn't make a difference because I was just one nurse in a system designed to ignore people like me. And now I know that the system only works when we refuse to be ignored, when we document, when we testify, when we fight even when fighting seems impossible. Sarah met Mitchell's eyes in the rearview mirror. I'm not invisible anymore. None of us are. No, Mitchell agreed. You're definitely not invisible. You're the face of the largest corruption scandal in American history. How does that feel? Sarah considered the question seriously. Terrifying, overwhelming, like I'm about to spend years living under microscope being attacked by people who want this buried. But also right. Like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do. She smiled slightly. My father taught me that some fights are worth everything you have to give them. I guess I finally found mine. Mitchell pulled up to a secure government apartment building where Sarah would be staying during the investigation. Protection detail, 24-hour security, the kind of precautions necessary for someone who'd just declared war on billionaires and corrupt officials. Get some sleep, Mitchell said. Tomorrow starts the real work. Sarah climbed out of the car, then paused. Colonel Mitchell? Yeah? Thank you. For seeing that signal at the airport, for protecting me when you had no reason to trust me, for being there through all of this. Mitchell's expression softened. You're welcome, but Sarah? I didn't protect you because of that signal. I protected you because the moment I saw you standing at that gate, bruised, exhausted, refusing to run, I recognized someone worth fighting for. He drove away before Sarah could respond. She entered the apartment building, cleared security, rode the elevator to the 8th floor. The apartment was utilitarian, safe, temporary, but it was hers. Sarah collapsed onto the couch, every muscle in her body screaming with exhaustion. She should eat, should sleep, should do something other than sit in the darkness, letting the events of the past 48 hours wash over her. Instead, she pulled out her phone, opened the photo album she'd been too afraid to look at for 8 years. Pictures of her father, young, healthy, smiling, alive. Tears came finally, not from grief anymore, from something more complicated. Relief, anger, joy, confusion. All of it tangled together until she couldn't separate one emotion from another. Her father was alive. The network was collapsing. Justice was coming. And Sarah Martinez, the nurse they'd tried to erase, the soldier they'd tried to control, the daughter they'd tried to break, had won. Not completely. Not permanently. but enough. Enough to matter. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered warily. Major Martinez? A woman's voice. Older. Shaking. My name is Catherine Brennan. My son was one of the patients at Harborview Regional. He died 3 years ago during what they told me was routine surgery. Sarah sat up, her exhaustion forgotten. I'm listening. I saw you on the news, saw you talking about the victims, about making sure everyone gets justice. Catherine's voice broke. Can you help me understand what happened to my son? The real story. Not the lies they told me. Yes, Sarah said immediately. I can do that, and I will. Every family deserves the truth. Thank you. Catherine was crying openly now. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for fighting when everyone else said to let it go. The call ended. Sarah sat in the darkness holding her phone. This was why she'd fought. Not for headlines or recognition or career advancement. For Catherine Brennan and the thousands like her who deserved answers. For the victims who'd never gotten to tell their stories. For every person who'd been dismissed, ignored, or erased by a system that valued power over people. Sarah stood, walked to the window. Washington, D.C. spread out below her, a city of monuments and memorials, power and politics, secrets and lies. But also a city where sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, the truth won. Her reflection stared back from the dark glass. Not the invisible nurse anymore. Not the ghost operative. Not the grieving daughter. Someone new. Someone forged in corruption and tempered by betrayal. Someone who'd learned that silence was complicity and invisibility was a choice. Major Sarah Martinez. Whistleblower, prosecutor, survivor. Someone who'd refused to stay quiet even when quiet meant safe. Someone who'd turned her powerlessness into power by refusing to accept that she was powerless. Someone who'd proven that one person, one nurse, one soldier, one human being willing to fight, could bring down empires built on suffering. Tomorrow, the trials would begin. Tomorrow, the real work would start. Tomorrow, she'd face attacks and threats and attempts to discredit everything she'd fought for. But tonight, she'd won. And that was enough. Sarah pulled out her phone one final time, typed a message to her father. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. The restaurant near our old house, if it's still there. We have a lot to talk about. His response came within seconds. It's still there. I've been waiting 8 years for this dinner. I'll see you tomorrow, Sarah. I love you. Sarah smiled through fresh tears. I love you too, Dad. See you tomorrow. She put the phone down, looked out at the city one more time. Somewhere in those buildings, powerful people were planning how to escape justice. Lawyers were crafting defenses. PR firms were preparing statements. They would all fail. Because Sarah Martinez had learned something they'd never understand. That the invisible ones, the nurses and soldiers and ordinary people they'd dismissed and exploited and tried to erase, were only invisible until they chose not to be. And once they stepped into the light and refused to back down, they were unstoppable. Sarah closed the curtains. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new challenges, new opportunities to prove that justice mattered more than power. But tonight, she rested, knowing that the woman they'd tried to silence had just changed everything. Knowing that the daughter they'd tried to break had proven she was unbreakable. Knowing that the fight wasn't over, but for the first time in 8 years, she wasn't fighting alone. And that made all the difference.